3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor at 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is another edition of the Zach Gelb Show on a Wednesday across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. And you could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That is ZACHGELB. We got a whole lot cooking today. Former Washington and Boise State head coach Chris Petersen is going to stop by at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Ryan Hot Take Hickey's going to join us in studio at 4:40 p.m. Eastern time, and he'll probably tell us why he believes Penn State is going to win the football game by 4 touchdowns and be disrespectful to SMU. I do find it funny, by the way, Stu. So Notre Dame, right? Those ticket prices, they've dropped a little bit, I would imagine. But last week when we looked, they were at like $1,000. I don't know what they have dropped to, but I did see an article the other night that all these ticket prices are dropping for the college football playoff. I found 2 tickets for Penn State, about 30 rows off the field, 30-yard line, first level. Combined, they were under $200 with fees, under $200 for 2 tickets total. So the big bad Penn State fan, right? The most passionate fan base in the country. Nobody's like the Penn State fan. Are they having trouble selling tickets? We will get the address of the Penn State Nittany Lion Nation from One Hot Take Hickey. What are the good Notre Dame fans, right? The Fighting Irish. Here come the Irish. What's the get-in price for Notre Dame?
So you can get in for around like $450 or so to get in. So that's a lot cheaper than it was.
For one ticket?
For one ticket, yes.
For one ticket.
Yes.
Now, under $200, I think it was like $193 for 2 tickets. And where's that seat, by the way, for $450?
It is 23. Yeah. So they're all like kind of like behind the end zone and like that second level, far back. 30
so not
back.
As good of a seat as the ones that I was
definitely
just telling
not
you
as
about.
good as the ones you're describing.
So I don't know. Those Happy Valley fans. I don't know if Hickey's going to the game. I guess we'll find out when he joins us. But that is a Saturday game at noon Eastern time. Hopefully he doesn't sit in 4 hours of traffic to go a mile like he did a few weeks ago when he was up at Happy Valley. So enough about Hickey. We'll also talk to Tom Hannifan, a true Penn Stater, coming up at 5:20 p.m. Eastern time today, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. Also some programming notes, since we always love to give you a compelling product and some of the biggest names in sports. We have confirmation that the head football coach of the Oregon Ducks, quack, 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 Mr. Ducksworth, Dan Lanning, who is a frequent visitor to the show, and he is a friend of the radio program. He's going to be joining us on Friday's edition of the Zach Gelb Show. So a few housekeeping notes, just to make sure that people understand that we're still here and hopefully we're not going anywhere. Anyway, let's talk about Kirk Cousins because he's going somewhere. I don't know where, but it was such a dumb approach, if I could just say this, by the Falcons. Like, Stu, I don't understand it whatsoever. Why yesterday you had the entire day to sit on it. Your press conference was at around, we were talking out of the final hour of the show, so somewhere in the 5 p.m. Eastern time hour. I think it was right about 5:15 when the quote started to go viral. So you had the flight back from Vegas. You had all the time back on the flight, 4-hour flight, whatever, 5-hour flight. Then you had all morning to think about it. You had all afternoon. And how when they got to the podium yesterday, it made absolutely positively zero. And I mean 0 cents why the Atlanta Falcons, when they had Raheem Morris go up to the podium, say basically, I don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. And then shortly after that, and I said this on the air yesterday, that the moment when they had no announcement, that's when I was 1,000% certain that Michael Penix Jr., with that big Penix energy, was going to be starting coming. I had said that very, very slowly and very, very carefully. But that you knew he was going to start up against the New York Football Giants. But it's just such a sloppy announcement. It's really such a sloppy process how the powers that be with the Atlanta Falcons organization couldn't give you that answer before you put your head coach at the podium. Whether the head coach is making the decision or not, it's just not good optics. When we all know that the coach is basically lying through his teeth, and maybe he didn't know at the time, but he had to know what was going on, unless if Raheem Morris is just a puppet, and you have Terry Fontenot and Arthur Blank really pulling the strings. And if that's the case, then why the heck did you hire Raheem Morris? That doesn't make any sense to me. So Kirk Cousins benched, right move. Maybe it's 2 weeks too late is I guess the best way to say it. This probably should have happened now in retrospect, looking back 2 weeks ago. I thought that he should have started that Monday Night Football game, especially against the Raiders. I said it last week. They didn't elect to listen, so away you go and you try to salvage the season, where in all likelihood, I know that you're even in terms of, or no, you have a 2-game advantage. If you finish tied with the Buccaneers, you have the tiebreaker is what I'm trying to say. I don't know why it's so difficult to say for some reason. You have the tiebreaker if you finish tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because you beat them twice, but right now, the Atlanta Falcons are a game behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because the Bucs have one more victory. Sometimes you're paid to speak. And there's just some moments where I love family members when I'm not on the air because then I'm like not on, and that's when I'll be stupid, that they go, you really get paid a good amount of money to talk to people and people actually enjoy you? You know, those are conversations that I have with my family. And then sometimes I let that moment of stupidity really just reflect on the air. And that was one of those moments. But that's what happens when you don't like script your show and you just go, right, impromptu, and, you know, you have your talking points, but you don't type out everything that you're going to say on the radio. You know, you have those human moments and it's okay. And you just keep it moving and you keep it grooving, which we'll continue to do. So when you take a glance at Kirk Cousins, his future in Atlanta is over. And, right, we'll have people like Marco Belletti yesterday, which it's a fair thought, who will go, oh, because of the contract, I don't know if he's definitely going to be gone. I don't want to say the money is irrelevant, but I'm going to say the money is irrelevant just in terms of this. Whether he's on the roster or not next year, you still got to pay him a large amount of money because he's in the first year of a 4-year contract. So there's ways to save, right? And there's all these stipulations and there's all these rules with the contract and when you cut a player and all that stuff. But when you look at the quarterback position, this is how I look at it. The guy you're turning to and the guy that you're going to is on a rookie contract for the next 4 years if you really want. Because this is year one. Rookie contracts, when you're a first-round pick, they're up to 5 years because after the fourth year, or it'd be the third going into the fourth, you could exercise the fifth-year option. So you have money that's allocated, whether Kirk is on the team or not, one way or another, to the franchise right quarterback in theory, even if Kirk Cousins isn't playing. And I know he has a no-trade clause and all that stuff. I have a tough time believing that Kirk Cousins is going to want to stick around with the Atlanta Falcons. Even if Michael Penix, like D-Cell was saying behind the scenes to me today, what happens if Michael Penix is just dog bleep the next 3 games? I go, fine. I go, if that's the case, that's not enough of a sample size in 3 games when you use the 8th overall pick on him to not make him the week 1 starter next year. The only way Kirk Cousins is starting week 1 for the Atlanta Falcons next year is if, unfortunately, and this would be terrible and it's even horrible to think, but you got to think of every possible outcome. With his injury history, he suffers a terrible leg injury, and it basically is going to wipe him out for most of next season with how late in the season we already are. But even then, I don't even think Kirk Cousins want to be in Atlanta. And I said this the moment when the Atlanta Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr. I said everyone kept on telling me, typical radio hosts kept on saying, oh, well, in theory, you'll have him play 2 years, and then you'll move on from him, and it's going to be a smooth transition, and nothing's going to... No. I've always walked into that this was going to be one and done for Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. Now, I was naive to just think that he was going to play well this year. And then he was going to say, I played well. I'm not following to the beat of your own drum. I'm following on my own, and I want to go somewhere else when I'm still in the last few years of my career. The problem now is he hasn't played well. And some people may look at it and they go, oh, is it just because rust from the Achilles? Or is it that he's washed? Like, is there a mental part of it because of the uncomfortability with the Michael Penix Jr. situation? There's a lot that's on the table, and there's a lot of different ways why you think Kirk Cousins isn't playing well. I'll give you my first 2 thoughts. Number 1, he has not fully recovered from the injury. And number 2, he's washed, right? Like, it's that simple. We are now warped into thinking. And, right, we lived through the Brady era where Brady did it till he was 44, 45, and he was fine wine. He got better with age. So we all believe now, right, you were getting sleepy, that every quarterback is going to be able to play in this fictitious world up until 44, 45. That doesn't happen in this sport. Brady was an enigma. And no, that's not a plug for Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady was one of one for crying out loud. Peyton Manning quickly, right, did slow down. Went from record-breaking to then being incompetent. Drew Brees, even towards the end, even though he's making deep runs, he was the reason why they were losing. So it's not crazy when a quarterback is in his mid to late 30s that he starts to have this massive fall from grace. And that's what we've seen from Kirk Cousins. So I don't know how active the Kirk Cousins market is going to be, But I'm not living in this world because the Falcons got to pay him either way. How they could try to save money, right? You could go read about that online. I'm not going to bore you to death with, oh, you do this then, you do this then, blah, blah, blah. I think that's just terrible, crappy radio, if I'm being honest with you. So when you look at Kirk Cousins, the money is what the money is. And with that being said, someone will talk themselves into wanting to trade, or either they release him and they sign him on the minimum, like what just happened with Russell Wilson. There will be a team, there will be a suitor out there that is going to bite on whatever Kirk Cousins is selling. But since Atlanta's going to owe him X amount of dollars anyway, well, you don't need to have him on your team because you have who you think is your franchise quarterback in Michael Penix Jr., who you're basically paying nothing. So I'm trying to think, Stu, what's the next destination for Kirk Cousins? And I'll just simply ask you this, and I think it's tough. Is there one team that jumps out to you? Was there one team in the last 12 hours or so where you're like, okay, that's the team that I see for one Kirk Cousins?
I would say maybe the 49ers, if they're not happy with Purdy and they don't want to pay Brock Purdy, that could be one. Other than that, I think it's going to be like a team that drafts a quarterback in the middle of the first round and they just want a guy to kind of...
Like a vet?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting that you said the 49ers. So let me read you a few paragraphs from our pal, Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. Not many teams will be looking for a starter in the offseason. The current candidates are the Jets, Browns, if they could get him cheap, Titans, Raiders, Giants, Saints, and perhaps the Seahawks. So let's just do this quick exercise for Kirk Cousins. Stu, you tell me if you agree or disagree. I don't see Kirk Cousins going to the Jets in this offseason.
I agree.
Now, it doesn't mean Aaron Rodgers is going to be back, but I don't see them going and getting Kirk Cousins, especially when they tried for Kirk Cousins a few years ago, and he basically laughed in their faces and said, I'm going to Minnesota, even though it's a different regime. The Cleveland Browns, I don't see him going to the Browns because I think that the Browns are going to be dumb enough to run it back with Deshaun Watson once again. Agree or disagree?
I agree with that as well.
Tennessee, I think it's a possibility. I don't know how attractive that is. You don't have a quarterback. You're probably not going to be able to get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. Does one of these other names maybe excite you? But I do think that Tennessee is a possibility, but I don't think it makes Kirk Cousins jump up and down for joy. But you may not be in a position to really dictate this one in your terms. So I'll say Tennessee's a possibility.
I could see it.
The Raiders. I don't think it's a possibility. If this was last offseason, that was probably the time to do it. It did not happen, especially when you had Devontae Adams. I know you still have Brock Bowers there, but the Raiders are clearly trying to get the new shiny option at quarterback, whether it is Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and they are bad enough where they'll be picking in the top two. So I would be shocked if it's the Raiders.
Unless they stub their toe against the Jaguars and Saints coming up here and win one or both of those games, which is my worst nightmare, but... If they don't and they have a top 2 or 3 pick, I agree with you.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Always a chance with the Raiders.
The Giants, the New York Football Giants. I think they're getting either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, so I don't think that's a possibility.
Agree.
The Saints. It's kind of the same thing as when I look at the Browns situation. Like, you're still in business with Derek Carr. Are you really going to move on from Derek Carr, even though I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback? I would probably say no on the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I don't see going from Carr to Cousins. That feels weird.
The Seahawks. I think Geno has 1 year left. I could see Seattle being a potential destination, but if you are Seattle, Stu, and you're moving off of Geno Smith, who's a solid quarterback, but he's not a franchise quarterback, I think you need to bring in someone that excites the fan base a little bit more. To me, that just feels like a stopgap for a year or two, and you're hoping it's working. To me, that doesn't scream, okay, you move off of Geno and then you're getting Kirk Cousins. That's not a guy to me who's a franchise quarterback in this league anymore.
Doesn't make sense to me.
So then there's this from Florio. Then there's the 49ers. Bum, bum, bum. With Brock Purdy not ascending the way many had hoped, Coach Kyle Shanahan might finally reunite with the player that Kyle and his father Mike drafted in 2012 as the insurance policy to our pal RG3. So the Niners, I love that you brought them up. Because I thought that the Niners in the national discourse today, when this announcement first came out that Kirk Cousins was getting benched for Michael Penix Jr., that the Niners were going to be the first team that people were going to throw out there. Now, let me just throw this to you. I could see the Niners being a destination for Kirk Cousins, right? He gets released. You you continue to pay all the guys that you do. You even add more to that roster. And you say to Kirk Cousins, take a Russell Wilson deal for a year. You could go change your legacy if we go win a Super Bowl, and then no one could ever doubt you. Right? Like, I don't think Kirk Cousins is a Hall of Fame quarterback. But if Kirk Cousins wins a Super Bowl, you're going to start to get those conversations. Those conversations will at least start to happen. So that's a road for potentially Kirk Cousins to go. Personally, I think the Niners would rather pay Brock Purdy like $55 million a year, which is crazy for Brock Purdy, but that's the market, instead of bringing in Kirk Cousins. Now, here's the thing that I'll also throw out there why I don't think Kirk Cousins to the Niners is likely. If you're going to let's say they want to move off from Purdy, which I don't know if they do, Stu. Who's also a free agent this year? Sammy Slinging Darnold. Now, maybe because you're the Niners, you could say to Sam Darnold, let's be real, Sam. You're a product of the system in Minnesota. We got a pretty good system here in San Francisco. We'll give you the Baker Mayfield contract. What was that? 3 years, $100 million, something like that? We'll give you that contract. Would you rather pay Sam Darnold, Stu, 3 years, let's say $100 million, and you know what? Let's bump it up. Let's have a little fun here. Let's get crazy. Let's say it's $110 million over 3 years. So that's $36.6 million a year. Or would you rather have to do $55 million a year for Brock Purdy? What would you rather do, Stu?
I'd rather pay Darnold. I just think that's too much for Purdy.
I agree, because if you give that $55 million price tag, which us still not knowing what the ceiling is for Brock Purdy, like he's a solid quarterback. I don't know if he's great. Right? I don't know if he'll ever be great. But Brock Purdy, and there's no terrible way, I don't think it's a terrible thing to say. I think he benefits greatly from the system. Doesn't mean he's bad. But Sam Darnold benefits greatly from his system as well in Minnesota. So if we're talking about system quarterback against system quarterback, you get one for about 36 and the other for 55, and you could still keep your team intact and add on more to it. I would rather take Sam Darnold. So that's why I also don't think Kirk Cousins, unless if it's $1.5 million, $2 million, but he's also older. Don't you want to have a little continuity with the Niners? So that's kind of my thinking with the 49ers. But then also, here's the final nugget from one Mike Florio. Finally, don't rule out the Rams. Cousins is still a younger option than Matthew Stafford. And Coach Sean McVay, who, like Shanahan, worked with Cousins in Washington, has high regard for Cousins. Now, I'll just ask you this. Why would the Rams move off of Matthew Stafford? Wouldn't Matthew Stafford have to move off the Rams and retire? That's the only way that I think that's a possibility, and maybe retirement's on the table for Matthew Stafford. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I feel like we've had that conversation for the last 2 years. So where's Kirk Cousins playing next year? I guess if you put a gun to my head and said make a decision, I would say it's Tennessee. Because I think there's better options for the Niners. I think Stafford will be back with the Rams, and it's okay, Tennessee has to do something. And you're basically just punting on finding your franchise quarterback, because what is Kirk Cousins going to get on the market this year with not a lot of leverage? But he always finds a way to do something crazy with that contract. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, we're going to draft 10 quarterbacks who have never won a Super Bowl that are currently playing. Stu will take 5. I will take 5. Who will be the quarterback to win their first Super Bowl next? We'll do that when we return in 5. But first, football season is in full swing, and you take full advantage by winning some cash with Sleeper Picks. Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 of your favorite player stats. If you're right, you could win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. For a limited time, Sleeper has a special offer. New users have to play $5, and they'll receive $55 in free bonus entries. That's right. If you deposit $25 and play $5, they'll give you 11 $5 bonus entries to start playing. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE and get it on this promo before time runs out. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and unlock one of the fastest growing fantasy sports apps in the world. Use code SCORE to claim the play $5, get $55 bonus entry offer. That's code SCORE. Must be at least 18 years old in most states and present in state where it is legal to wager. Promo code location and other restrictions apply. Minimum deposit $25. See terms of use for details at sleeper.com. Please play responsibly. Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Sponsored by Sleeper, a Blitz product.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So we're sitting here, and we're counting down the days to the Super Bowl. I just found out today, as we normally do, but we got the official email that the show will be going to the Super Bowl this year in New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans twice. Once was for Mardi Gras, and the other was for a Super Bowl. Always love going to New Orleans, and gonna have a good time in Nolens on Bourbon Street, obviously. Who was the Bobby Hebert, who is a listener to the show? Maybe we'll hit him up while we're there. Maybe we'll go get a meal with Bobby Hebert. I liked when he came on the show, and he goes, I remember when you were doing the night show, and you would always yell at that producer of yours, Hot Take Hickey. So maybe we'll link up with him. But going Super Bowl, I always say this. And I understand, right? You parachute into other cities. Like I went to the Super Bowl in Indianapolis. I thought Indianapolis did a great job. Lucas Oil Stadium's really damn cool. But if you look at it like Miami, I would say LA, you could go Phoenix, New Orleans, those 3 to 4 cities, I feel as if they are the main Super Bowl cities. And then also add in Vegas now. Add in those 4 to 5 cities. If you tell me, you got to go to Vegas, Zach, you got to go to LA, you got to go to Arizona, you got to go to New Orleans, Miami. I'm pretty good in those cities. You want to send me to some, Minnesota one year, I'll freeze my ass off. I'll go to Minnesota. I always love going to the Super Bowl. And we do some of the best shows out there on Radio Row. And quite frankly, we made the biggest headline from Radio Row last year with our conversation with Micah Parsons. One clip on Twitter did 4 million views. It was crazy. It was the talk of Radio Row. So I like going to those events and kind of taking over. Now, I wore the USA suit for Army-Navy, USAA Radio Row. We were the star of that event. When I was in Vegas, I wore my Vegas shirt. I thought we were the star of that event. I don't know if I'm going to dress up anything funky for the Super Bowl. I feel like that's just like a dress shirt and jeans or something like that. But maybe we'll come up with something.
Is there something Mardi Gras related that you can pick out?
There could be a day. Maybe we just do a Mardi Gras themed day where you have all the beads and everything and all that. And like maybe if I'm hungover from the night before, you just walk in with sunglasses on and just sit down and basically look like a douche on Radio Row is probably the best way to do it. Who's that national guy with his sunglasses on indoors? What a loser. And that's what we'll probably do. Yeah, that's a good one, Steve.
Or a Derek Carr jersey, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a no from me, dog. I don't believe I'm ever going to be wearing a Derek Carr jersey. That's just personal preference. Anyway, let's do a little draft here, Stu. We'll take 5 quarterbacks each because we're trying to see if maybe the Super Bowl this year won't have Mahomes, who has won 3 Super Bowls, and maybe if it's a Super Bowl where a quarterback's looking to win a Super Bowl for the first time. So if you've won a Super Bowl before, you are not eligible. Stu, I will let you start first because I'm fascinated by who's going to be the first pick here.
Yeah, I think there are a couple options, but I will go Josh Allen. I just think he's the best guy that hasn't won one, and but for me, is the second best quarterback in the league right now behind Mahomes, who obviously has won one.
So here's the interesting part. We're doing quarterbacks that have not won a Super Bowl. And the idea of the draft is who's going to win the Super Bowl first, right? So, like a name like a Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's not making the playoffs this year. Now, only one man can win a Super Bowl. So do I maybe make a long-term play and take Joe Burrow? And then, I'm hoping that happens next year. And maybe Mahomes wins it this year. That ends up being the first. So I'm going to actually go, because I get 2 picks here. I got to pick a quarterback that's in the mix right now. And I think in terms of that quarterback, even though he doesn't have a team that I'm thinking is going to be in the Super Bowl, but they'll be in the playoffs, but the guy has done everything in this league but win a Super Bowl. And that is Lamar Jackson. So I'm taking Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. And then my second pick, I will go Joe Burrow. Because I do think Joe Burrow one day is going to win a Super Bowl, just not going to be this year. So what do you got cooking next, Stu?
Okay, those would have been my next 2 guys. So I think that's a tiny bit of a drop-off after those.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to be honest. I thought it was slick. I sometimes do this where I go, do I want to go first or second? And I should probably just flip a coin and have the decision made for me. I thought it was a good decision to go second today. And then after I further thought about this exercise, I go, I probably should have just went first and took Josh Allen. Then you had to make that decision. But anyway, you live and you learn. So what do you got?
So I will go next with 2 guys that I think have pretty good chances to win this year, and I think are right behind those 3 guys that we just mentioned. First, I will go with Jalen Hurts of the Eagles. Obviously very good. He's on a very good team. They have a good chance to win it this year. And then Jared Goff, who I know maybe he's not elite category, but he's in the very good category, so I think he fits this.
After I made my pick, I wrote down your next two picks, Stu. I got the order wrong. I put Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts, but I wrote those names in there because I realized how this was going to go. So Stu has Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff. I have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Quarterbacks that have not won a Super Bowl that we're drafting to see who will be the first to win a Super Bowl. Okay. So now I got to do two more picks here. The NFC's pretty slim. Let's see if I like anyone in the AFC. All right, I'll pick a quarterback. And I'll pick a quarterback in the NFC. And I'm going to pick this quarterback just based off two things. Hall of Fame, Super Bowl. That's kind of the theme. Hall of Fame, Super Bowl. Brett Favre, Hall of Fame, Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, going to be a Hall of Famer, Super Bowl. I'll go Jordan Love. Even though I don't think it's going to happen this year, I will put Jordan Love down as my next pick. Alrighty, so I got two more picks to make, but one right here. I'm trying to see anyone in the NFC. Don't really love. Definitely not Dak Prescott. So then we go back to the AFC. Now you probably... I was going to say you start to get long-term. I still have a tough time envisioning this team ever winning a Super Bowl. But the guys had a good first year and a half in the league. And I think in college he was kind of not put in the best position with this coach. I'll go C.J. Stroud. So I will take C.J. Stroud as that quarterback. So I have Lamar, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, quarterbacks that have not won a Super Bowl that will one day win a Super Bowl. Stu has Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff. You got two more picks to be made.
Yep, and those are also my next two.
Oh, really?
Stroud and Love, yeah. My first one here, I'll go with a quarterback who I think is very good. Finally has a head coach this year. I don't think they'll win a Super Bowl this year, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, they'll have a chance, and that is Justin Herbert with the Chargers. And then after Herbert, I'm going to go with someone who...
In college, you going to go Shedeur Sanders with the Raiders?
No. I'm actually... it's tough here, but I'm going to go Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
I just think his body of work has been pretty good. Maybe he gets in the right situation in the next 3 or 4 years to, I'm not going to say luck into a Super Bowl, but maybe he's the guy that a team makes a magical run, so I'll go with him.
So now I'm in a spot where if I don't pick someone that was on your list, I'm talking about a listener's list, then I'm going to get a tweet. And the tweet's going to be like, how do you not think my guy's not going to win a Super Bowl? So let's go through it. Tua, I don't think will win a Super Bowl. Drake May, they got to build a team around him. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. Bo Nix, don't think he's a Super Bowl winning guy. Russell Wilson already has a Super Bowl. Deshaun Watson, he's just got to be able to get through a season first. Anthony Richardson, no. Trevor Lawrence, no. Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, no. Going out on a limb there. Jaden Daniels, potentially. Dak Prescott, not as long as he's on the Cowboys. Geno Smith, no. Kyler Murray, no. Brock Purdy, I don't even know if he's going to be the Niners quarterback next year. Sam Darnold, I don't think he's winning a Super Bowl. Caleb Williams needs a coach. Michael Penix, let's see him start his first game this weekend. You know what? I'll go Jaden Daniels. Part of me was wanted to go Arch Manning or Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, but I will go Jaden Daniels. So the quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl that haven't won a Super Bowl in a draft. Stu takes Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield. I have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, and Jaden Daniels. So Marco Belletti, I have an update for you. A little food update.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go through all the items that I ordered yesterday from Costco. So I use a delivery service from Costco, and I placed an order with 7 items. Now, it said it was going to get to my apartment in the range of 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., I believe was the range. It's usually spot on. It's never been after noon Eastern time. For some reason, whatever it was,
Hey, it's the
yesterday,
holidays.
I had to get in there early. You know, I'm not slamming the delivery people. I still tipped everything fine.
Come on, it's the holidays.
No, yeah. People are busy. I get it. So it ended up coming to my apartment at like 2 o'clock yesterday. So I was here. I didn't get back to my apartment yesterday until 6:15 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go through the items. Some of these items are going to be obvious answers.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco was basically telling me, because sometimes I will admit, sometimes I understand what Marco was saying yesterday from a logic standpoint that frozen things are going to melt.
Yes.
But sometimes I think I'm just going to have crazy luck and I'm going to find a way to just beat science, right? Pretty much beat simple science here.
So you're delusional. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm a little delulu.
No, I got
as
it.
the
I got
kids
it.
would say.
I got it. I'm just,
So my water bottles, do you think they were good?
Oh, come on now.
I'm just asking. I'm
Yes,
going through the order.
yeah, they're fine.
The
They're
water
fine.
bottles were
the
good.
water bottles are fine. Yes.
The chicken sausages that I got.
As in, like from the meat department, like chickens? No.
No, package.
Yeah, no, that's shot.
You were, they look like they would have been fine, but then I pressed down on it and like a gook came out of it.
They shrunk a bit.
You said that. Now you have a dirty mind.
I'm just
A
saying.
gook was coming out of the sausage.
Yeah.
So
That's a bad sign.
So I threw that in
You
the
don't want
trash.
that. You don't want that. You don't want ooze.
The Detroit Motor City 2 frozen pepperoni pizzas, which are delicious.
Yeah, forget about it. It's gone.
Picked them up. It was mush.
Uh-huh.
Mush. So 1 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
The frozen fruit for
No.
my smoothies
No.
was like pudding.
Yes.
1 for 4. My Gillette razors,
Oh, well, that'd be fine.
they were good.
Yeah.
All right, my perfect peanut butter bars. Just a peanut butter protein bar.
I've never seen it, but a protein bar should be fine.
They were fine. And my trail mix.
That's fine.
Okay. So I placed a phone call, very calm phone call. And I said, hey, I placed a delivery order. You know, I had to go into work. It said it was going to be there by noon. I got back to my apartment not until 6:20 because of the fact that it said it was going to be here by noon. I go, is there anything you guys could do? And they go, just go online and you say that it got spoiled. We'll refund you in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I got refunded for the sausage, for the pizza. Great job by Instacart. And also the smoothies, the frozen fruit for the smoothie. Placed the order again, right? They said you could either get a refund to your card or just credit. I go, just give me credit. I'm going to replace the 3 items. And they are delivering tomorrow morning. Now I have no.
Same window?
I have. Well,
time?
I missed it by 2 minutes. I didn't realize this. They could have maybe did it last night. But yes, it was the window of 10 to 12. I don't need to be in here early tomorrow. So if it doesn't happen until 2, I live a 5-minute subway ride. I can get.
Okay, see here.
Do you think I should change it to maybe Thursday night now?
I mean, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to live.
I
You're
look
a
to
grown
you for
man. You can
fatherly
figure that
advice
out.
here.
You're a grown man. You can figure out how to get your deliveries.
I'm a man. I'm 30.
Well, I mean, not honestly, because if I would tell you you're a grown man, you can go to the store. You can go pick up the stuff
Well,
yourself.
Costco.
So, I mean, the fact that you need it delivered to your apartment,
Costco.
that's in and of itself.
not close.
Well, whatever. So whatever time you need it there
I
to be
usually
able to
do
get
the
to
food
it.
shopping
Well,
at the store. This is Costco. It's different.
Hey, whatever.
We're Costco guys now. Boom, boom.
Whatever you need that you get it hand delivered to your house, yes, just know that if you miss it and if you leave frozen or refrigerated items for 5 to 6 hours in a 70-degree apartment building, yes, it's going to spoil.
Yes.
I don't think this is a conversation that you need to contemplate anymore. At least now you're aware
Yes.
the stuff will spoil.
You live and you learn.
And I saved
YOLO.
you from, I mean, hopefully you would have thrown it out regardless of what I would have told you.
Oh, yeah.
I would hope so. Because if not, then yes.
If we never had that conversation, though, it would have been funny because I would have walked up to the door, not even have thought anything of it. I would have picked it up and been like, what's the soup that I ordered?
Ah,
Yeah. It never even crossed my mind.
there's the delusion. Okay, all right, I'm getting it. I mean, you would have also been gone for a week with the Rhea, but I mean, so I'm helping you out a little bit.
And
I didn't realize
diarrhea,
I needed.
folks, just
I
being
didn't.
clear.
I didn't realize that I needed to help in this regard, but I'm glad I could be of service.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I'm just thanking you.
Here
It's the holiday season.
we go.
I'm
we go.
just thanking you for your services.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, let's get the latest update in with El Capitan Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, the plan was for Kirk Cousins to be the bridge before Michael Penix eventually took over for the Green Bay plan, following the way Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre and Jordan Love behind Rodgers. But things expedited with the ineffectiveness of Cousins. Raheem Morris didn't run from that. Cousins took the news about as well as possible.
But Kirk was a professional. He's a pro. He's a man. He's a great human. He's a great father. He's a great football player. He's done a lot of great things for us this year. He handled it with class. He's an absolute professional. I can't say enough good things about who the man is and how he is and what it is. But, obviously, there comes with some disappointment when you lose your job.
And that's now in the hands of the 8th overall pick in Penix, as the Falcons will play host to the Giants on Sunday. Giants going back to Drew Lock. He apparently is healthy this week. Change set for next year in college football. Ivy League schools set to participate in the FCS playoffs for the first time. They'll get an automatic bid. League deciding the change after a proposal from student athletes. Ivy League also needs to decide on the tiebreakers for the league title. This year, 3 teams tied for that championship. Wake Forest hired Jake Deckard as their next head coach 2 days after Dave Clawson announced his resignation. Deckard spent the last 3 years at Washington State, went 23-20. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Time to ask the pros. You, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by Riley Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. You can think of Riley Auto Parts for your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's start it off with Baldy. Brian Baldinger was on the morning roast at 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. Should the 49ers, Baldy, pay Brock Purdy?
I'd go flip him for Sam Darnold right now. Look, let's just think about Sam for a second. He sat there as a backup all year. He learned what a first-class franchise, game planning, how to build a team. Like, he saw that for the first time in his life. He's a bigger, stronger than what Brock is. Like, or can you play with both of them at a modicum of salary and afford both and, I don't know, have a competition? I mean, I'd be interested to see what it would take to get Sam Darnold.
So we talked about that a little bit earlier. I think if you could get Sam on like $35, $36 million a year or pay Brock Purdy $55, I would think that you'd rather pay Sam Darnold. Let's go to Diamador Lenore of the San Francisco 49ers. He called out Devondre Campbell.
For that to happen and him to do that, I just lost all respect. I'm a person that's going 110% every play. So if I'm hurt and the guy behind me is not backing me up and can't come in or don't want to go in, so I just feel like that he's a cancer to the team.
Yeah, it was absolutely gutless, and I actually respect the 49ers for being petty and saying, you know what, we're not just going to release you so you can go anywhere and go compete for a Super Bowl on a playoff team. We're going to just suspend you, and you're not going to get your money, and then we keep things moving, and your season's already over. If you don't want to play when we needed you, then we're not going to let you play anywhere else. I don't know how this came up. Maybe it's just, would you go to another bad organization? But Devontae Adams was on Up and Adams with Kay Adams, and he was asked if he would ever play for the Bears.
Would you ever play for the Bears?
No.
Why?
Look, I'm not playing too much longer as it is. So on my last days in this league, after all I've been blessed with, I will not be going to Chicago. I will, like I said, I respect everyone I play, but I'm not playing for the Bears, no.
So why would you then stay with the Jets? Just asking that. Why would you waste your final days in the league with the Jets, Jets? Let's go to John Gruden. He was on his new broadcasting home, Barstool Sports. And Chucky was asked which NFL opening would fit him best.
Of all the coaching positions that might be open this year, it might be the Dallas Cowboys, we know the Jets, we know the Bears. Where do you think you would fit in best?
Oh, I have no idea. That puts me on the spot.
Yeah, you're right. That's a tough one, huh?
I do think the Bears with that young quarterback is interesting. I like their defense too, man. Have you seen them play? They got corners. They do have some pass rushers. They got some receivers, man.
Yeah.
They got a quarterback. I like this kid, man. This quarterback is interesting, man. It's got me feeling nicey.
Feeling nicey. Yeah, I think the Bears, even though their ownership is just terrible, it's the best job in the market when you look at the roster and the young quarterback as well with Caleb Williams. I could see why John Gruden would want that. He's not going to get the Bears job, though. I will say this. I watched Surviving Barstool last night. I've been watching that. That's been absolutely phenomenal. So, Barstool platform now for John Gruden. I would highly recommend watching Surviving Barstool.
It's got me feeling nicey.
That's right. Let's go to Coach Prime. Deion Sanders. He was on the Adam Pac-Man Jones show. Must have been some interview. And he was asked about his future at Colorado.
I love where I am. I'm elated where I am. I'm happy where I am. I can't wait to see what the future beholds with where I am. And I love Boulder, Colorado. So I have every intention, every plan in the world to be coaching for the Colorado Buffs from here on. I want to finish here. I want to put the flag. I want my names on the mountains out there. I want to put my flag down in Colorado.
I thought for a second, Stu, he was going to say in our rivalry games, I'm looking to plant the flag in the ground as well. And then I got what he was saying. So you could take Prime for whatever that is worth. But how about his son, Shedeur Sanders? Where is Shedeur Sanders going to be playing football next year?
Let me throw it out there. Raiders slide up to get the number 1 pick.
Do they have to slide?
Well, they're number 2 right now.
Okay, who's one right now?
I think Giants are number 1. Giants, right?
Giants are not going to give up that pick. They're not going to give up that pick. The Giants are not giving up that pick. Shedeur's going to be the number 1 pick.
If the Giants are the number 1 pick, who's the number 1 pick, Pop?
Shedeur's going to be the number 1 pick.
And it feels like there's this idea that Coach Prime wouldn't want his son to play for the Giants. I think once we saw Shedeur this past week in the streets of New York City at the Heisman Trophy event having a catch with Malik Neighbors, I guess we could lay that narrative to rest on that and then also with what Coach Prime just said. And finally, let's go to Damian Lillard. The Bucks won the NBA Cup, I guess is the right way to say it. And this is Damian Lillard finally gelling with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I think it's one of those things where people wanted to put me with Giannis and think it was just going to be perfect right away because we've both been high-level players, but I come from a situation where I've always had the ball, and he's had a decade of him having the ball and playing a certain way. So I think time is the number 1 thing. It just took time for us to get to know each other better as people. You can't just trust somebody that you paired with when you don't really know who they are, how they think, and how they operate. And it's just grown over time.
So big deal winning the NBA Cup. I know our pal Bart Winkler, when the Bucks won an actual championship, an NBA championship, he was just drunk all throughout the night. He was running the streets through the streets of Milwaukee without a shirt on, and he showed up to the radio station just absolutely intoxicated. I wonder if he celebrated the NBA Cup last night. Did he walk into the studios in Milwaukee to do his national radio show? Was he hammered off the NBA Cup? If it wasn't for Bart last night, I would have had no clue that the Bucks actually won the NBA Cup. I had to sit there and go, say that. Yeah, pretty sure they won the NBA Cup. Come on. Who cares? Chris Petersen will join us next. You don't want to miss it. Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And away we go, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. We go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a man that coached at Boise State, also Washington. I now enjoy him a lot, usually on college football Saturdays on Fox, and that is Chris Petersen, kind enough to join us right now. Coach, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Real good, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm fantastic. So I know we got the college football playoff that's going to start on Friday evening, as you will have Indiana, Notre Dame. You do have Boise State, who's in a bye, waiting for to see who their opponent's going to be between SMU and Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. Every time I bring you on, I feel just that I have to bring up your Fiesta Bowl appearance because I think it's one of the greatest college football games of all time with the Ian Johnson story and everything that was able to transpire. Looking back all these years later, Did you kind of realize that the magnitude of that game and what it would turn out to be? Will we still be talking about it, decades later, in the moment?
No, I didn't think so. I really didn't. In fact, even kind of shortly after the game, I kept thinking, why is everybody making such a huge deal of this? With the trick play, we had used a version of all those plays one time or another. We just had never been on that stage against a really good opponent like Oklahoma. And I've said this before. I mean, that game was special, and, the comebacks on both sides just made it so compelling. But we played in the Fiesta Bowl a couple years after that I might have been even more proud of. We had Boise State undefeated playing an undefeated TCU team that was really, really good. Those were two very good teams. And it was like kind of a shame that they pitted us together. They should have pitted us with some of these other big name brands, because it just would have been, and they kind of put us together, and we won a hard fought game there. Really a defensive struggle, the opposite of the first Fiesta Bowl. And so, yeah, we've had some good times in the desert there. But, yeah, it's amazing that people still talk about that game.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you look at it all these years later, and now you have Boise State back in the Fiesta Bowl. It just feels right. They have a bye in the college football playoff. Ashton Genty finished as the runner-up for the Heisman. Spencer Danielson, he could do no wrong in the last year and a half. Just your thoughts on this Boise State team, on the special journey that it's been so far.
It's awesome. And, it just seems like this is typical Boise State football. I don't know what it is. I think there's certain places that are just meant to be good at football. And Boise has always been good at football. Boise State, not that long ago, was a junior college and won a junior college national championship. And then they go to Division II, and then they go to 1AA and do the same thing, and then made a short transition to Division I football, or what we know now as FBS, and really in a short time got pretty good at that as well. And so now here we are again. But I will tell you this, and this is, I'm sure you're discussing this, and it's just such a crazy time in college football.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense what is going on here. There's no rules. There's no regulation. There's no real leadership. Nobody can do anything because the thing is so big and has taken a life of its own. Everybody's worried about being sued in court, and that's not going to fly, so they can't get structure around the game. But what I really worry about is truly separating the haves from the have-nots. That's been the cool thing is, you've had these teams like the Boise States and Fresno States and, TCU and Utah, even back in the day before they made the jump to the Pac,
sure,
that you could build a program and you could really develop kids. And every few years, something special could really happen there. And now that's just making it tougher and tougher to do when all the players are just going to leave and be picked off from season to season. You can't build anything. And so it's awesome that Boise's in right now, while they still can be, and have a chance to do something kind of special. So this is really special time for the Broncos, and I love it. And I can't wait to see them compete on this stage.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because when I look at the transfer portal, it's just a shame that there's teams that are in the playoff, and now kids, even if they're not playing, they could still be a part of that run, but they got to leave just because of the calendar. But the way that you talked about the haves and the have-nots, that's why I think it's so cool this year, because, right, 3 years ago, Boise State, the season that they just had, they're not making the playoff. The highlight would be a New Year's Six Bowl. So I wonder, hey, for Spencer Danielson, if an Alabama ever came calling, an Oregon came calling, there's just certain jobs you can't turn down. But with Boise State being one of the top non-Power 4 conference schools, I wonder if it gets a coach like a Danielson to stay around a little bit longer, if they could continue to make one of these 12-team playoffs.
That's the $1 million question. But what the $1 million question is, what is this going to look like next year and the year after? When certain people are going to have $15 to $17 million in their bank account to pay players, and teams in the Mountain West or Pac-12 now are going to have maybe $2 million, $1 million. What is that going to look like? And that's what I'm kind of getting, because it's all going to come down to that. Like, do you have the resources to really compete at that level? Before it just used to be, do we have the resources to build facilities and, kind of keep up and have a great, have a chance to compete on a national stage? That is not even talked about anymore. Yeah. Right now, it's just about how much money can I make?
And it's also how much money can a new coach bring in, too? Like, you'll see some, like Mike Vick, right, got a job the other day. It's because he's going to have a lot of people out there to come on and give money.
Yeah, there's no question. And so, it's just and it always has been about money, but it hasn't been so much only about money. All the coaches that I talk to, that's all it's about. It's just about how much money. And I'm not bashing the kids on this at all. It is the system that is so wrong. And I think everybody knows it. It's just at this point, we can't make enough headway to tweak it. I talk to ADs. I talk to coaches. I talk to coaches within the week that are in the playoffs that are miserable, trying to keep their roster together because supposedly they've been told they're worth more now than they were, 3 weeks ago. And so that's all they're doing is negotiating with their players, trying to keep their roster intact, and they're trying to get focused to play in a playoff game. Tough time right now.
Coach Chris Petersen here with us. I'll tell you this. I think it's more likely that you would rather be the next commissioner of college football than return to a college football sideline and coach again.
That is a great question, but I will tell you this commissioner that everybody talks about that we need, which we do, that is going to be a really hard job too. I mean, you talk about some decisions, it's one of those jobs you can't be right? It's like, what is going to be done for the greater good of the game and the kids? And that's going to upset a lot of people. And so, but yeah, I mean, we need to get some decision makers. And there's some really smart people involved with college football right now. These commissioners that run these different leagues and the ADs, there's some really, really talented, smart people. It's just like handcuffed right now.
Well, if you want to be the next commissioner, I'll be your PR person. All right?
Yeah,
we can do that.
So I appreciate it, though.
Coach Chris Petersen here with us. I'll ask you one more thing about Boise State, then we'll go around some of the other matchups. The Heisman Trophy reaction. Were you okay with it going to Travis Hunter? Or did you think that Genty should have won the award?
Now, you know where my colors lay, so I was rooting hard for Ashton. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he's just, and I think this word is so overused. I'm embarrassed that I'm kind of using it. Oh, he's a generational talent. I think, though, that we have two just so unique players in Travis and Ashton that we haven't seen in a long, long time. I mean, when we're talking about comparing Genty to Barry Sanders, I mean, I've been hearing that, and then you got this two-way player that is like all league in the Big 12 on both sides of the ball. I mean, these are rare cats, and it's been so fun to watch them. I think it's, so it's hard to, to say anything like Travis shouldn't have won that. I was pulling for Ashton, I mean, all the things that Boise State's always having to work against. Now they're on that national stage there, and they got a player that deserves that award. But congratulations to Travis, and those are two really good players. I think the other thing that's really cool about the Heisman, it wasn't dominated by the SEC or, even the Big Ten, and it wasn't all quarterbacks. It was really a lot of this buzz about these two players, which made it really unique to watch this thing unfold as well.
Coach Chris Petersen here with us. Get into the matchups that start out this weekend. Friday night should be some scene and potentially snowy South Bend, as you do have Indiana up against Notre Dame. Notre Dame had that terrible loss earlier in the season to NIU. They haven't lost since. Their run game has been awesome. Xavier Watts is just arguably the best defensive player in the country. And then Indiana, They had that one big game up against Ohio State, and it didn't go their way. And then this is a redemption story for them. I can't wait for this one on Friday night, Coach.
I agree with you. And this might be the toughest game to predict what's going to happen out of all of them that are going on, even on Saturday. But this is the beauty. I mean, so as much as we're kind of bashing college football right now, or I was, one beautiful thing is this 12-team tournament. Because both these teams right here, if we're at the old 14 playoff, we're not talking about them. And these are two really good teams to talk about. And both these teams had, Notre Dame had the stumble that is really kind of hard to explain, except for that's the beauty of college football. And they're still like that one stumble doesn't take them off the big stage. So I love that. And then the fact that Indiana has done what they have done and then lose a hard-fought game to a really good Ohio State team at their play, and they're still in the mix. So this is really fun, and this is a good story about college football that we're talking about these games. I can't wait to see this. I've been thinking about these, and it's you kind of fill out your bracket trying to predict how this bracket here is going to look. It is really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that is probably going to influence and who's going to win the national championship, I think it's going to be whichever quarterback plays the best, takes that next step and plays these games at the next step. Like I think about Quinn Ewers. Like if he takes that next, you see these flashes, can he play at that consistently? And so I kind of go back to this Indiana Notre Dame matchup that you asked about. And so Notre Dame's got this defense that's just nasty. Indiana is still they're good on kind of both sides of the ball, but the quarterback's been really, really good. And so what quarterback is going to elevate their team? I think that's what this is going to come down to in a lot of this.
And it's one of those years where you got a lot of questions about the quarterbacks because, you mentioned Quinn Ewers. There's some weeks I'm like, oh, maybe they should put Arch Manning in, but they keep on winning all these games. And you look at Clemson, there's been some moments where their season's been on the line, and then Cade Klubnik has started to look the way that we thought Cade Klubnik was going to be. That quarterback matchup between Ewers and Klubnik in a 5-12 game, that's the one I'm most curious about this weekend when we're just talking quarterbacks.
I'm with you. Cade Klubnik has been, and we kept talking about this at Fox all along. Like I felt like Clemson kind of been laying in the weeds all along. It kind of they lost early, and it kind of took the shine off the team. But it took a lot of pressure and spotlight off them so they could just do their deal. And then they kind of backed into the playoffs with that Miami loss. And so I think they're in a great, but Cade Klubnik has been playing really well all along. And so this is going to be a really interesting quarterback matchup. And I would go to that game. I love Texas's defense. I mean, I think defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski's got one of the best defenses in the country in Texas. They've been as much as Sark and the offensive flair and they score points, the quarterbacks, we love to talk about that, have defense will travel. So that's always going to give Texas a great shot. But if Klubnik comes out and has one of those that is outstanding performance, that may be the team that wins.
Because your teams are always ready on the big stage. I talked to Kobe Wilson yesterday, linebacker of SMU, and I just sense a confidence about them. We know the pressure on this one. It's all on James Franklin and Penn State. When you see SMU from afar, do you think the stage will be too big for them?
I do not think it'll be too big. I think these guys are going to come out and surprise some people how well they compete against Penn State. They're saying, the ACC, and now they got to go into freezing temperatures, and they're not used to that from being from Dallas and all. And I think they're using that all for their motivation. And when you get a really salty, motivated team, look out. Plus, they're highly skilled. And so I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup, even though I actually like this Penn State team a lot too. This is a team that could really, when you look at their bracket, that could go into a run for a while. But I think all these games are going to be really, really competitive. And as I say that, they probably won't be because that's college football for you.
Yeah, I hope not. I always make that joke in college football. Whenever we think it's going to be a monster weekend, it isn't. And whenever we think it's going to be a dud, it ends up being the best weekend. Just look at Alabama and Vanderbilt this year. No one was talking about that game. And then, boom, that's all we do is talk about it. Before we let Coach Chris Petersen run, I got to get to Tennessee and Ohio State. Ohio State, I just wonder where they're going to be at mentally a few weeks removed from the Michigan game. And then for Tennessee, I would just do the Michigan playbook of run with Sampson. But ultimately, Iamaliava is going to have to make a big throw. And to go back to your quarterback point, what version of Nico Iamaliava are we going to get in a huge game here in the playoffs?
I think this is going to be the good one because I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what is Ohio State going to look like. Tennessee already runs the ball. They already have that playbook. Now they can throw it a lot better than Michigan could. So that's where it gets real interesting. But I mean, for me, early on in the year, I was kind of all in on this Ohio State team. I even, the one college prediction that I made right early on is I thought that Oregon would beat Ohio State in Autzen Stadium, because I've been to Autzen Stadium too many times to know what a tough venue that is. And so that happened. I thought that they would play again in the Big 12 championship. That did not happen. And I thought Ohio State might have a chance to get them on a neutral field. To me, this all comes down. I still think Ohio State could do some damage in this thing. It's all mental. The thing that I never like is an all or none situation for any team. When you push your chips on and it's an all or none, you push all your chips on and say, this season is a disaster if we can't beat our rival or we don't win at all. I just don't, and I know the standards at Ohio State, but I never subscribe to that philosophy. It's all about maximizing potential, playing to our potential. The sum of the parts is greater, and it's never about we got to beat this one team or this is it. Because there's too many things that are out of our control, from injuries to the opponent having some say into it. And all I think that does is put so much undue pressure on these kids that they're not going to play their best. And I think you saw that in the Michigan game. I think we all felt that the other side probably had more to them than they put their best. So if they can learn from that and kind of put that behind them and play one game and just lock arms and play together and worry about playing our best and not worry about the scoreboard, which I know sounds crazy in this day and age, I think that Ohio State could make a run in this as well.
And even if they win, they got to go up against Oregon. I know we could see that rematch, right? It came right down to the wire earlier on in the season, and there was just bad clock management and awareness by Ohio State. So I'll end you on the Ducks, Coach Chris Petersen. I love Lanning. I said this to his face once, and I know it may not sound respectfully, but I'm like, you are a football psycho. Like, you get on the sideline and just something overtakes your body where you just had that look to you where it's football, football, football. He wins a national championship this year with no Saban in the sport. Harbaugh no longer there. I know Kirby, obviously he's had so much success, but he's not Mr. Personality. Lanning, to me, when you talk about face of college football, he wins it all this year. He's going to be that guy that we look at as the next face of college football. Your thoughts on him as a coach?
Again, I'll go back to, I don't think it's an all or none situation. Like, I don't think it's about that. I think it's about body of work. And I think he's already going to be there no matter how this thing turns out. Like, Oregon's always been a really good program, but he's elevated them and taken them to the next level. So I think he's got tremendous credibility right now, no matter how this thing plays out. But we go back to quarterbacks again, and we started with the Heisman Trophy candidate. Like, my first question always when we're talking about the Heisman Trophy,
who are the quarterbacks?
I throw it back and I'm like, well, what is this award anyways? What are we talking about? What is it? Like, how is it the best unique player in college football? Is this the play, the player on one of the elite teams that they can't do without? If I'm choosing sides, if I'm like we're drafting college players right now, and I got first pick, the guy that I'm probably picking is Dylan Gabriel. This is my favorite college quarterback. I don't do that translation to the NFL. Like, that's not I don't know how they're going to translate. But I know this guy is a really good, experienced college quarterback in a great system. And he has played extremely well. And so this is the guy that I like. And we're talking about this quarterback's making a run. That's why I think Oregon's, right now, the leader in the clubhouse because of Dylan Gabriel and the parts that surround him, but really because of him.
Coach, we always appreciate it. Thanks so much for doing this. Happy holiday season, and also enjoy all the games coming up this weekend. I know you will.
Will do. All right, Zach.
There he is, Coach Chris Petersen. Always enjoy when he joins us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. That was a good topic that he brought up. If you had to draft one player in college football, who would it be? Who's the first guy? Because Gabriel finished third in the Heisman. He was the first quarterback. Ward finished fourth. But if you talk about players, I think a lot of people say Travis Hunter because he goes both ways. And you have the running back of Ashton Genty. But we know usually, right, in football, quarterbacks are the ones that we associate the most with winning and losing. And look at the career of Gabriel. From UCF to Oklahoma, and now with Oregon. Man, this dude, he has a ton of touchdown passes, a ton of passing yards. Doesn't matter where he goes. You drop him anywhere. And the dude knows how to win football games. He knows how to put up some big stats, and he's got a chance. And I think Oregon or the field, I'm taking the Ducks, which I probably feel like you shouldn't with how many talented teams there are or how many teams they're in. But that's just how confident I am with Oregon with the way that they play as a team. We'll take a break. It is Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
I'm back. He's also back. That's Scott in California, who had called me each and every week last year and was very, and I mean very upset with the way that I talked about his Minnesota Vikings, who finished the season 7-10. This year, the Minnesota Vikings are 12-2, and we haven't heard from Scott in California until now as he makes his triumphant return to the Zach Gelb Show. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Scott, I was really worried about you, and I haven't heard from you all throughout this football season.
Hey, Zach, it's good to talk to you, man. And I did call in yesterday, and then I heard what you were talking about me late after that, and I was just cracking up. But I don't think I called you too much last year.
You called me every week?
After Cousins got hurt, I was pretty quiet. But in 2022...
Oh, was that it? It was 2022?
Yeah, it was probably more that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I told you that they were frauds, and then eventually they were.
Yeah, every week. And
they lost to Daniel Jones in the playoffs.
Yes, and so it kind of... I shut up then, too. But now... Hey, I gotta if you can have time for this, but you were talking yesterday about people accidentally cussing on the radio.
Yes.
When I was in college back in the mid '80s, I had a friend of mine that got a job like just switching carts overnight. Didn't talk.
Okay.
But he ended up getting the morning. It was a rock station, but they had a drive time 6 to 10 show, and he ended up doing that. And apparently, my buddy, who was a groomsman of mine. He watched a sporting event the night before, and he was excited about it or something. But on the radio, he said that F-bombing Olajuwon. And he knew exactly when he did it that it was, not going to be good. But back then it was different. It was the mid-'80s. But, yeah, he got a call on his next commercial break and got ripped up for that. So
did he lose his job?
What's that? No, he did not. He did not. But so we are 12-2. Detroit looks like their defense is getting a little decimated.
Well, let me ask you this then, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Do you think they're fraudulent this year?
I do not.
So
do you?
Well, I'll answer that in a second, but let me ask you one more question first. You fill in the blank. The Minnesota Vikings this year will, and you tell me how far they're going to go.
Well, that's tough for a Viking fan. I want to say it would be in NOLA, in the Super Bowl. Of course I'm going to say that. But then I'm also a realist and a lifelong Viking fan. It depends on if we get a first-round bye. That's another question for you, is if we can get above Detroit. Then, because we play really well on the road and at home.
Yeah.
It's a different year, and we've got – it's not Sam Darnold,
You know what I think is the biggest thing you guys got going for you, Scott, which I think is the biggest difference from the team 2 years ago? I'm not even going to say that because he was there. I think the biggest difference is the defense. The defense
Flores.
to me. Flores has been unbelievable. He probably won't get a head coaching job just because of the whole lawsuit and anything, but that's a guy that's deserving of a second opportunity. But he's been absolutely phenomenal. And I look at that, like in 2022, that defense got carved up by Daniel Jones. This defense, I don't think in a big game they're going to get carved up. My biggest question is Sam Darnold going to go back to being the old Sam Darnold in a big game? Like, I expect Minnesota. I don't expect you guys to get the bye. It's possible. But you got to beat out both the Lions and the Eagles, but you're right there with 2 losses. So even if you have a wild card game, I could see you guys. I think if everything goes right for the Vikings, I could see you guys in the NFC Championship game. But my pause, even though he's played really well this year, is I just can't envision. I can't envision Darnold in the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to say this year that the Vikings are fraudulent. I think you guys are a really damn good football team.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Hey, do you know who Daniel Jones plays for now?
Who?
Daniel Jones.
Oh, Daniel Jones. Yes, he's in your quarterback room. How about that?
That's another question. What do you think we should do with next year with McCarthy, Daniel Jones, and Darnold? I mean, I have no clue for that. And but Zach, it's been really great talking to you, and I will continue to call in with my Vikings rhetoric.
No, win or lose, we want Scott in California's calls back, and we want to hear you because let me tell you, if it ends usually the way that this ends, I may or may not enjoy the pain that you may have to go through in January.
Hey, but Zach, when you were talking about me yesterday after I disconnected, I was literally laughing my butt off on the way home. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, Scott.
I love your show. I love everything you do. I love your all your commentary and your content.
Well,
you
thanks so
care.
much, Scott. Appreciate it. Appreciate you calling. He's right. That was 2022. That's when he would always call me, and then he kind of stopped calling after the whole injury happened, and then we haven't heard from him all throughout this year, so I just thought something like horrible happened. I hate to say it, but I was really concerned. Now, I don't think the Vikings are fraudulent. I think they're a really good team this year. I still have a tough time seeing them get to a Super Bowl, but that is funny how that works. Daniel Jones carves you up, and now he didn't have a job, and he ends up walking into your locker room and holding a clipboard in Minnesota. But to answer his question, I think McCarthy's going to be their starter next year. This is nothing against Sam Darnold. I think he benefits from that Viking system with O'Connell, with Jefferson. You got Addison, you got Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. You can make the case that Justin Jefferson, in terms of value to one's team, could be the most valuable player in the league. Like Josh Allen or Saquon, one of them's going to win the award. It's going to be Josh Allen. But even in a game the other week when I was watching Minnesota and he had 7 catches and a touchdown and like 80 or 90 yards, like not his greatest stat line, he just opens up so much of the field with how much attention's placed on him for other guys to just eat and really feast in that lineup. So good to hear from Scott in California. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we will have to hear from Hot Take Hickey. He will be in the studio. We will get his official prediction on Penn State SMU. We will also get the state of the Penn State Union because there's a lot of tickets available for this great fan base in Happy Valley at a very affordable price. I saw 2 tickets total with fees included just under a little $200, 30 rows off the field on like the 30-yard line. I was shocked to see that in Happy Valley with those sycophants. Really surprised. So is the Penn State cult crumbling? We'll find out next. Here's Marco.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Zach, dawning of a new day set for Sunday in Atlanta as Michael Penix will take the start against the Giants, sending Kirk Cousins to the bench.
Obviously, you go in, you evaluate, you talk, you look at the tape, you go through all the process, you go through your next preparation and your daily things that you got to do. Obviously, we got to play better at the position. We want to play better position, and that's what we made the decision to do that last night.
Head coach Raheem Morris says he made the move after Cousins put up 18 touchdowns and 16 picks, only 1 touchdown to 9 interceptions over the last 5 games, not to mention tied for a league worst with 12 fumbles. Cousins, of course, only in year 1 of a 4-year deal at $180 million. Elsewhere, Ivy League schools set to compete in the FCS playoffs for the first time. They'll receive an automatic bid. Also need to decide on tiebreakers for the Ivy League title. 3 schools tied for the title this past season. Wake Forest set to hire Jake Dickert as their next head coach. Spent the last 3 years at Washington State, went 23-20. Move comes just 2 days after Dave Clawson announced his resignation. Caden Salter appears to have the inside track to replace Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. Salter reportedly set to transfer to Boulder after starting 29 games for Liberty over 4 years. I'm Marco Belletti.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, we'll talk to Hot Take Hickey right now in his weekly Wednesday spot. So it is college football playoff season. Gets going on Friday. You're off Friday because you're going to Penn State, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll be making the trip to Happy Valley once again.
Okay, so you're leaving Friday. The game's Saturday at noon Eastern. Last time you went to a Saturday noon Eastern game, you left at, 8 a.m.? You had to travel 3 miles, and it took you 4 hours because Penn State has this thing called traffic, and for some reason, there was no way that all the cars could actually move with 100,000 people going somewhere.
Correct. So I'll make sure to leave even earlier this time to get into a good prime parking spot. Same town, Bellefonte, just outside of State College.
So why don't you walk?
It's like highway. I'm not going to walk on the highway. And there's still a good amount of, between Bellefonte and State College, there's still a good amount of open highway where cars are zooming by. It's just right at the exit for State College is when all of a sudden the backup is there.
5:30 a.m. I think you're leaving now? Is that what it's going to be?
I'm going to caravan with one of my friends. So whenever he leaves, we're going to leave with him at we learned the hard way the first time. We'll not make the same mistake again.
So what are you aiming for?
I'm going to say 7.
7.
Because we he left I'm going with the same friend we went to the first game. He left about a half hour or so roughly before I did. He got in no problem. So it's one of those, as soon as the bottleneck starts, it's basically gridlock. So if we leave at the sweet spot, which I would say just about a half hour, 45 minutes so before, we should be good.
By the way, there's actually going to be fans in attendance because, a great fan base like Notre Dame, they were $1,000 to get in. Now it's $450 a ticket. I sent you 2 tickets this morning that I found 30 rows off the field, 30-yard line, under $200 with all the fees. I think it was $193 or something. What's going on? I thought this was going to be a big happening event because we don't know if Penn State's going to show up or not and win the game. But something we're always told about Penn State is they got the best fan base in college football. There's no environment like an environment in Happy Valley. Why are these tickets not going through the roof?
I think probably in part opponent, probably in part time,
it's a college football
in part
playoff.
Weather. I'll be there.
Time, weather. What are you talking about? The fan base is being weak.
First of all, we don't know. We'll see why that looks like. I'd be disappointed if it's not a sellout, which it should be. I have no worries about what the stadium atmosphere will be like on Saturday at noon. It'll be rocking.
Do you think SMU will be ready for the moment? Are they going to lose this game because they won't be ready for the moment?
That's interesting because they did not play well against Clemson at all. I think they'll learn from that. I think they'll be better prepared. I don't think they'll lose the game because they're on a big stage with bright lights and they crap their pants like we kind of saw Indiana do against Ohio State.
You're talking about radio producers around here or the football team?
Both. Both. Yeah, I think they'll be ready.
I believe Penn State's going to win. Now, we have a pending bet where if Penn State gets the national championship game, because you said they're going to be in the national championship game, I will dress up as a Penn State Nittany Lion and do a whole show in Penn State Nittany Lion garb. And if Penn State doesn't get there, whoever James Franklin blows a big game to, you have to dress up as their mascot. So that's the bet that we do have. Now, You look at Penn State SMU out of 100% confidence. Where's your confidence that they're winning this game?
90%.
Okay, 90%. What's the score? Give me the official hot take Hickey pick.
31-20. Penn State wins. I think they'll be able to run the ball against SMU, and I think they'll be able to keep up and chase down their offense.
Not that as obnoxious as I thought you were going to be.
I'm trying to keep a measure. Like, what do you want me to do?
That's not the Hickey I like.
SMU's a good team. Kevin Jennings is a tough guy to corral. It's like mini Lamar Jackson out there. You got to, chase him down. I think they will, but it's a go-go offense. They snap the ball very fast. Going to be a lot of heavy breathing, I'm sure. The cold air's not going to help.
Rashad Smith, too. Very good running back.
They have a million weapons they throw the ball to. He spreads the ball really well. Yeah, he's a great receiver and running back as well. It's going to be interesting.
So you hate the SEC. That's what I've gathered.
No, I do not hate the SEC.
You do.
I hate
the SEC.
This arrogance that surrounds the conference, that they are the mightiest thing that could be. They invented football. They think everything else is beneath them. I hate the...
You realize that's the same
arrogance.
way you are with Penn State and the Big Ten. You have become the biggest Big Ten homer that I have ever followed on Twitter.
I told you. I picked Penn State
insufferable. You've been insufferable with this Big Ten push. I love the Big Ten. But
Big Ten's a good conference.
You're kind of like Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
How Aaron Rodgers is with Ryan Clark, where he goes, I'm serious here.
What?
Where Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Clark, where he goes, oh, I don't really care. And then he proceeds to go off a rant about something that he cares about. It was very hypocritical. You always bitch about the SEC, but then you kind of just play that card now in the Big Ten with being insufferable.
Like how? How? Look, I will not deny the arrogance for the SEC bothers me. So I'm not going to be like Aaron Rodgers. Oh, I don't care. But then let me go on a 10-minute diatribe about why I do care. I care. It clearly bothers me. I'm not going to hide from that. I give the SEC, I think, their due praise. I'm not trying to take shots at their teams. Mm-hmm. I do not think I act the way or the same way that I yell at the SEC for.
So here would be one example.
Okay.
You call a lot of teams in the SEC overrated, correct?
I don't know about a lot, but I think they do get overhyped because of the conference that they're in.
Is Penn State overrated?
In what sense?
They haven't won a big game this year. Their best win's USC. And you think Penn State is this great football team. That's the disconnect. Do you think Ohio State is overrated?
No, I don't. I think they're a very good team.
That's the thing. You give the Big Ten, those teams that don't have these great wins, the benefit of the doubt, but you won't do so with the SEC. So I ask you, Tennessee, Ohio State. Let me guess who you're picking. You're going to take Ohio State to win, but you're going to have Tennessee covering the spread plus 7.5.
Absolutely. 2017, defensive battle. Both defenses are really good.
Ooh, if it's that low scoring, I favor Tennessee.
See, I think Will
with
Howard's
Sampson and Iamaleava.
I don't trust Nico at all. He's not very good. He does not elevate the offense. His 9
you
total
can't say
touchdowns.
he's a freshman.
I'm just right now in this game. I'm not saying for his career he sucks. I'm just saying right now going to this game in this season, he is underwhelmed based on the hype. And in this game, I think Ohio State's defense is good. Dylan Sampson's going to get his yards. Can he carry the entire Vols offense? I don't think so. You're going to need a passing component as well. Can Nico elevate this offense to make one or two big throws? I don't think he can.
Tennessee is basically Michigan except with a better quarterback. They have a really damn good defense. That you could say there's more star power on the Michigan defense. They have a great running back, better running back than what Michigan has, and I like Khalil Mullings. And they have a better quarterback.
Are you saying, sorry, for this year?
Yes, this year.
Okay. I think I meant last year. Sorry.
No. This year. That's, to me, Tennessee's Michigan with the better quarterback.
Right. But
and that's not a good formula for Ohio State.
Well, I think part of the reason why they lost, we've talked to this before, Ryan Day's a Michigan problem. He did not only wanted to win, he wanted to win a certain way.
Yeah, now the game doesn't matter.
And throwing
losers
at
Ohio State.
Ball.
Losers.
I mean, he's faced, to Ohio State's credit, they faced 3 top 5 teams. They were 2 in one of those games, and the other game they lost was 1 point on the road.
Stop with the participation trophies.
I'm saying they have a problem against one team. The good news for Ohio State and Ryan Day is they're not playing against the one team they can't beat.
Yeah,
they
that
beat
owns
everybody
real estate
else.
in your head and also Ryan Day
so
said.
They're gonna
That's why you look like Ryan Day. You have a Halloween costume.
You're
afraid of Michigan.
Ball.
Ryan Day's afraid of Michigan.
They're going to get Jeremiah Smith. He's going to have 10 catches bare minimum. Lock it up. I promise you they're going to get him the ball, Emeka Buka the ball. They're not going to replicate the game plan they had against Michigan, which was faulty from the start.
So you have Penn State winning.
Yes.
You also have Ohio State winning.
Correct. Close game.
So it's funny. Last night I sent you and Stu a photo, or maybe it was this morning. And it was you in a Notre Dame, was it a polo?
Quarter zip.
Yeah, it was in a quarter zip.
Like a golf
It came up on my phone. It was like like, you know how they just randomly they throw old photos up on your phone? That photo came up on my phone, and it's funny because you claim ever since we started working together, you never had any Notre Dame gear, and there you were with the photo.
No, I never
in Notre
claimed
Dame
I've
gear.
never Notre Dame gear.
Stu,
I have a lot of Notre Dame clothes.
That he stopped being a Notre Dame fan in high school. Isn't that what he tried to sell us?
No, I never said that either. In college.
Stu.
You said that if that's a few weeks or months ago.
Yeah, and a
I
debate.
never said high school.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not. Look it up.
I never said that. I never said
Paul,
that.
give me the receipts.
All right, I'll go find him. I will go down that rabbit hole to prove you out.
Please.
You know what? Now I'm Ryan Clark. I'll prove you out to be a fraud.
I am here for it.
Okay.
That is not the case.
So who do you have winning, by the way, with your Notre Dame Fighting Irish? You have two teams in the college football playoff, Notre Dame and Penn State. I hope they meet up together. That would be great.
I hope so, too.
Hickey can't lose. Oh, how great would it be? Hickey dressed up as a leprechaun if
that would not go well.
If Penn State loses to Notre Dame. Indiana, Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame wins. I think their rushing attack is too much for Indiana.
That's because Hickey's trying to suck up to Notre Dame to get them into the Big Ten.
No, I am not. No, I think they should be in the Big Ten. That's a different discussion.
Big Ten apologist. Ryan, hot take, Hickey.
Oh, my
What's the popular Big Ten podcast that you do now?
Still enrolled.
Still enrolled. And then finally, since we're still enrolled in this segment for now, Clemson and Texas.
I'm taking Texas. Clemson covers. This should be a blowout.
Ooh.
Quinn Ewers is going to make at least one, probably 2 or 3 boneheaded turnovers that are going to keep Clemson in it. It should be a blowout. I think the Tigers are in it because Ewers is just too inconsistent.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. With the 4 games this weekend, as we sit here on Wednesday, and I still got a few days to go through this, I know I'm picking Notre Dame to beat Indiana. I know I'm picking Penn State to beat SMU. I truly don't know who I'm picking. Texas, Clemson, and Tennessee, Ohio State. Those are the two. I think I'll end up picking, if you said gun to your head right now, who do you think, Zach, you'll pick on Friday? I think I'm going to take Tennessee over Ohio State, like I said, because they remind me a lot like Michigan this year, and they just have a better quarterback, and that wasn't a good formula for Ohio State. But Clemson, Texas, man, I hate to say it because I don't like this guy. Something scares me about Dabo just having one of those ultimate obnoxious post-game pressers. It scares me a little bit.
I would actually enjoy that. He
been.
is funny. I'm with you. He's insufferable, but when he wins, boy, is he funny.
The last 2 months, I'll say, and I've been anti-Dabo for the last 3-4 years now. Dabo, the last 2 months, I've enjoyed this version of Dabo Swinney, I will say.
He leans into the underdog. He loves it, and it is funny. It is funny.
Okay.
I'll give him that.
So you're taking Texas, but closer than what people think.
Yes. I think they win by 10. 12 spread is 12, but I think it's closer than it should be.
So you're going to be pretty liquored up for this game, Penn State?
Probably not.
What
I don't know.
You're going to the game at 7 in the morning. What are you going to do from 7 to noon?
Stay warm, number one. Yes, but I want to talk about these games. I'm not just going to be so drunk or I'm blacked out in the stands.
You
not remembering
drunk, you
any
sober,
bad
it's the
game.
same analysis.
Oh,
Does it really matter? I think that's the best version. Liquored up Hickey, come out of the stadium, no big deal, no big deal. Penn State, they won a big game that's not a big game up against SMU, and we're going to beat Boise, even though Boise's going to beat you. Thanks, Hickey.
Thank you, fellas.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Coming up 20 minutes from now, Tom Hannifan is going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on this upcoming weekend's college football games. Hey, Stu, I didn't ask you this. What are you doing for the Notre Dame game Friday night? I think it's an 8 p.m. Eastern time kick, so you got some time after the show. It's going to be snowing, supposedly, in South Bend. What are you doing for the game on Friday evening?
Don't have food plans yet, but I'm going to my apartment and watching the game. That is, I'm not going anywhere to watch it. Just going to kind of watch it at home.
Yeah,
but I'll
because you
get
need
something.
the sound on for a playoff game. going to be, I imagine it's chilly in the city on Friday too. Who knows? It was 55 degrees today. So I'd imagine tomorrow will be 20 degrees and be back to the crazy wind.
I don't like watching football games at bars either. It's just not my vibe. I just like to sit there, especially when it's my team. If it's not my team, that's different. But if it's my team, I kind of just want to have my own thoughts.
You more for a big game, Chinese food? Do you go wings? I could see Stu going with some cheeseburgers and fries. I could also see you being like a big pizza guy for these games as well. What's the early, if you had to put a leader in the clubhouse, where on the Thursday at Augusta, let's just say, who's leading after the first 18 at Augusta for the Stu food choice?
Probably not Chinese, because Chinese is typically the Christmas Eve dish of choice. So I think I'll usually go pizza, wings, some combination of that. I would say pizza's the leader in the clubhouse right now.
Wait. You're not Jewish.
I'm not, no.
And you guys still usually do Chinese food on Christmas Eve?
We do Chinese on Christmas Eve typically, yeah.
Huh. I didn't know. So what do you do then for Christmas Day? What's the big meal? Ham?
It's usually like a ziti or lasagna type of like Italian food. Kind of what Zach does for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Stu does for Christmas.
Okay. So no turkey.
No.
You don't have a pedestrian bird for Christmas. I don't need the extra mileage on that take this year. I was pretty calm. So actually maybe we'll end up bringing it back up. Is anyone, to further my point that people just love doing big turkey once a year and they don't really love it. They just hate it, but it's tradition, so that's why they love it. Anyone does turkey for Christmas? No. 7 fishes, that's usually right, Christmas Eve. That's always pretty cool. Tierney, BT, he does 7 fishes. I always see him on Thanksgiving Eve, I was about to say, on Christmas Eve. He's not wearing an ugly sweater, but it's usually like some big wool sweater that he posts, and he ends up showing us all the 7 fishes. I do thoroughly enjoy that BT text or BT post that I do get throughout the each and every year annually on Christmas Eve. So we're thinking, what did you say for your thing?
Probably pizza, wing, some combination like that.
Pepperoni.
Yeah.
Buffalo chicken, little sausage.
The buffalo chicken doesn't sound too bad either, but probably pepperoni would be just basic pepperoni.
You a well done pizza guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
Just making
sure.
sure.
Yeah, I don't like a sloppy,
sloppy
pizza.
za. All righty, we got a few quarterbacks that we got to talk about right now, and we're just going to predict their future. So I'll start things off with Shedeur Sanders. Did you ever buy, by the way, Stu, that Shedeur Sanders was going to try to force his way only to the Raiders, and if the Giants have the number 1 overall pick, that the Giants wouldn't end up getting Shedeur Sanders if they thought he was the best quarterback, because you would basically have Coach Prime and Shedeur Sanders pull an Eli and a Manning family, except it would be to avoid the Giants when they made their way to the Giants.
I was hoping that was the case. I would have liked that, so it gave the Raiders a little wiggle room if they didn't get the first pick, but realistically, probably not.
Okay. So let me just play you real quickly. This is Coach Prime on the Pac-Man Jones Show. Where will Shedeur Sanders do the Shedeur Sanders? Where will Shedeur Sanders go in the draft?
Let me throw it out there. Raiders slide up to get the number 1 pick.
Do they have to slide?
Well, they at number 2 right now.
Okay, who's one right now?
I think Giants are number 1. Giants, right?
Giants are not going to give up that pick. They're not going to give up that pick. The Giants are not giving up that pick. Shedeur is going to be the number 1 pick.
If the Giants are number 1 pick, who's the number 1 pick, Pop?
Shedeur is going to be the number 1 pick.
So I think Shedeur Sanders, if you're taking a quarterback number 1, I give the slight edge to Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Giants would do that. And I don't even know who's going to be the GM for the Giants or the head coach for the Giants. It could be Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. It may not be Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Did you see there was a plane flying over MetLife Stadium before the game on Sunday? And this is not the first time. And they had a message on the plane, and it was basically fire Joe Schoen and fire Brian Daboll. And then after the game, Stu, Daboll was asked about it, and he goes, I have no clue what you're talking about. I understand you're locked in as a football coach, but it's not like your team's any good. Your team stinks. And if there's a plane flying over the stadium before the game, all right, maybe you don't see it. But the Giants have a very good PR staff. It's not as if Daboll just goes right off the field to the podium. I'm not saying the first thing he does is checking his phone, but someone when the New York media really doesn't have a lot left to ask here, and when that happens, you know it's going to be asked. Someone, right, Stu, has to tell Daboll afterwards, hey, by the way, there was a plane flying over the stadium before your game once again, where it was saying to fire Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, and we're not going to leave until you get rid of both those guys. Like, he has to know that.
Just a friendly heads up, yeah. By the way, did you see those tickets for that game were going for as low as $2 just to get in upper deck seats?
So the fees were more than the tickets?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness
A bottle of water
gracious.
at the game would be more than the tickets.
So the last Giants home game, and they haven't won a home game this season, it's the Colts coming up not this Sunday, but next Sunday. Man, the Colts stink. I know there's still a chance they can make the playoffs as a wild card, but they can't win their division. What do you think the price is right now? So at Atlanta this Sunday, the get-in price, the lowest to see Michael Penix go up against the Giants is $68 in Hotlanta. At the end of the season in Philadelphia, the lowest ticket price at Lincoln Financial Field, last game of the season, of the regular season, is $89. Sandwich in between is the final Giants home game. The Giants have not won a home game this season. 1 o'clock game up against the Colts, who will probably be out of the playoff mix by the time that game happens. What do you think the lowest ticket price is right now?
I think it'll go down, but I say right now it's probably like $30.
$9.
Wow. Lower than I thought even.
Will Shane and Daboll be back, in your opinion?
It's close. I think no at this point, but I could see either way. I could see them getting one more year.
For most of the season, I thought they would be back. Now, I would assume they're going to lose that game to the Colts. You know, as long as Jonathan Taylor doesn't drop the ball right before you're about to go into the end zone like he did last week. I would think they're going to lose to the Colts. I really do. You don't win a home game. You got to pick a new quarterback. I really don't think John Mara, and I don't say you go into a season saying to yourself, oh, I want to fire the coach. But I truly do believe that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, they went into this season where John Mara's thought about both of them was, as long as this year, we're going to be bad, but as long as it's not a circus, a clown show, and just an unmitigated disaster, you know, go win 5-6 games, they're going to be back. The fact that they're sitting there at 2-12 and haven't won a home game, I think they're going to be looking, even if John Mara doesn't want to do it, I think he's going to have to do it. And I've waited and waited and waited on that. For most of the year, I thought that Daboll and Shane are going to be back, but it got so ugly publicly, and the team has been so bad when you knew this team wasn't going to be good anyway. I do not think that Daboll and Shane will be back. And if it's, you keep one and you don't do that. It's either you keep both, that's a decision. You keep both or you get rid of both. That's what the Giants should operate. Now, with that being said, were you going to say something, sir?
Yeah, something sort of similar. I know you mentioned the Giants not winning a home game. The teams that have won a home game at MetLife since the Giants last won, the Rangers, the Devils, and the Argentina national soccer team twice since the Giants last won a home game.
And just if we're keeping score, that was for a stadium series, right? The
Winter Classic.
The Rangers beat the Islanders.
Yes.
The Devils beat the Flyers.
Yes.
And who the soccer team? Who's that again?
Argentina.
They played 2 exhibition games?
They played 2 Copa America matches during the summer, and they won both of them. So, again, more wins since the Giants have won.
That's really bad. That's a great stat. It's a great nugget there by Stu. So the question is, will the Giants finish with the first pick? Because the Giants, they have the slight edge over the Raiders right now, right? They're the 1 and the Raiders are the 2?
Yes. So Tankathon has the Raiders higher because they're predicting out the strength of schedule the rest of the way. But based off of right at this exact moment, it is the Giants.
Okay. So the Giants have Atlanta, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia. They'll lose to Philly because it's going to mean something, you would still think, to Philly for the bye. Atlanta, young quarterback. They haven't played him yet. Now he's starting. I still think Atlanta's going to win that game. You get 17 points up against the Giants. You feel pretty damn good. You know, Michael Penix gets 2 touchdown drives and they make a kick. I think they're going to win that game. And then the Colts, the Giants are going to lose all 3. The Raiders, Jacksonville, the Saints, and the Chargers. Stu, I hate to do this.
I know. They're going to win one of these 2 games.
They're going to win one of these games.
Yeah.
Because they haven't quit on the coach yet. They're still playing. I know people don't love the coach, Antonio Pierce, but they're still playing hard for the coach. You look at the last few weeks. They lost 15-9 against the Falcons, 28-13 up against Tampa Bay, 19-17 to the Chiefs, 29-19 up against Denver. You know, I guess you could even the Buccaneers game. I'm not saying it was pretty, but you've never looked the last few weeks, right, Stu? And even in that Tampa Bay game, they were down 14-0. They made it 14-10 going into halftime. You really haven't ever looked at them and said, "Oh, they have quit on Antonio Pierce," right?
No, the Bengals game early November was the last blowout where I felt kind of all right, they're not really trying in this one, but yeah, the rest there's been a lot of close games.
So when we look at the quarterbacks, predicting where these quarterbacks are going to go, even though I think the Giants are going to have the first overall pick, something just tells me the Giants aren't going to draft Shedeur Sanders. I think the Giants are going to get Cam Ward. I've been saying the Raiders with Shedeur Sanders since May, so that may factor into this analysis as well, even though I'm saying I would pick Shedeur over Cam, but I do think it's close. And I talked to Cam Ward at the Heisman, and he was like, hey, I have a message for Joe Shane. Come get me. You know, if Joe knows what's right, you know, he will draft me. Well, Joe may not be in a position to draft you, unfortunately, if you're Joe Shane. I think Shedeur will go to the Raiders. Now, the 3 quarterbacks, or 4, Kirk Cousins, or 3, excuse me. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Sam Darnold. I'm going to say Kirk Cousins is going to be on the Tennessee Titans. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know about you, Stu. When they first got rid of Saleh, I go, you got to get rid of Rodgers at the end of the year. And I thought they would. And then you had the Joe Douglas firing, and I forget when you had the Diana Rossini report. I think it was after the Joe Douglas firing. There was a lot that came out about Aaron Rodgers. And once you had that report that Woody Johnson, right, it was after the Douglas firing, supposedly wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers after the Broncos game, I thought to myself, oh, then he's definitely gone. As we sit here today, Stu, incompetent franchises make incompetent decisions. On the 18th of December in the year of 2024, I think the Jets are going to bring back Aaron Rodgers next year. Do you feel that way as well?
I do. I think he'll be back with the Jets for one more year.
And how many Jets fans are taking the bait after beating the dreadful, and I mean the dreadful Jacksonville Jaguars? It's really alarming. And then it's just Sam Darnold. Where does Sammy slinging Darnold wind up? I think the Vikings are going to go with J.J. McCarthy and Darnold's going to go elsewhere. So I go through all these potential destinations. You know what wouldn't be a bad option? And I don't think Sam Darnold's a franchise guy, but it's a good spot, Seattle. If you say, oh, Geno's a little bit older, Geno, you know, he's fine, he's did well, 1 year left, and then just get rid of him, it wouldn't be a bad option to give Sam Darnold a 3-year contract. You know, I was going to say the 49ers. I thought they would say, we won't pay Brock Purdy $55 million a year. We'll just pay Sam Darnold $35, $36 and see if you could settle there. But I'm still not sold that will definitely happen yet. I'm not adamant and very confident that's going to happen. So I'll say right now, Sam Darnold, if you had to hold me to an answer, it's going to be Seattle. And you got some pieces there. And I know Lockett's slowing down, but you got DK Metcalf, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. And the Seahawks, to me, it's a good spot for Darnold. Because Darnold needs a lot of talent around him. And they have that talent in Seattle. So those are the options that I'll predict right there. Shedeur to the Raiders. Cam Ward to the Giants. Aaron Rodgers stays with the Jets. Sammy Darnold winds up with the Seahawks slinging it out in Seattle. And then Kirk Cousins to the Tennessee Titans. It's just like a weird ending for Kirk. You like that? You like that? I really don't like that. Tom Hannifan going to join us next. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Football season is in full swing, and you can take full advantage by winning some cash with Sleeper Picks. Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less on at least 2 of your favorite player stats. If you're right, you could win. You pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. For a limited time, Sleeper has a special offer. New users just have to play $5, and they'll receive $55 in free bonus entries. That's right. If you deposit $25 and play $5, they'll give you 11 $5 bonus entries to start playing. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE and get in on this promo before time runs out. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and unlock one of the fastest growing fantasy sports apps in the world. Use code SCORE to claim the play $5, get $55 bonus entry offer. That's code SCORE. Must be at least 18 years old in most states and present in state where it is legal to wager. Promo code location and other restrictions apply. Minimum deposit $25. See terms of use for details at sleeper.com. Please play responsibly. Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Sponsored by Sleeper, a Blitz product.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back in. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We go out to the guest line right now. This guy does a great job. Sirius XM, FanDuel Sports Network, also the Believe Network. He's all over the place. Also, Does a great job for TNA Wrestling as well. I was exchanging a few text messages with him the other night. We always talk about college football. And I said, you know what? Let's bring him back on the show because I always enjoy talking with him. And that's Tom Hannifan. Tom, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Just trying to get all the Christmas shopping done in time. I'm always the last minute shopper type. Like I have family members, my brother, my sister especially, like, oh, I thought of you in July or something like that. They buy it in July, and then I'm always the one, like, December rolls around. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to remember all your wants, hopes, and dreams and everything. So I'm just terrible at it.
What's the big ask this year? If, let's say, there's a member of the Hannifan family listening and they go, okay, I heard Tom on the radio, I got to get in this. What's the big gift?
That's a great question. I'm going to shoot for the stars here. Maserati. Just go for the Maserati. I'm not even a car guy. I just want to see if it actually happens. You know what I mean? Like, just wish upon a star. Maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, I think you'll need some NIL funding on that one, if I'm being honest.
Great.
So let's get to Penn State SMU. I sent you the clip the other night. We had Kobe Wilson on, the SMU linebacker, and he was extremely confident. He wasn't afraid of potentially the snow and the wind and the cold environment of Happy Valley. You know that place is going to be jumping, all kidding aside, early on Saturday at noon Eastern. I keep on asking this, and I'm curious what your answer is. We know SMU is a very talented football team. First year in the ACC, they made their conference championship game. They lost it, but now they're in the playoff up against Penn State. Is the stage of being at Happy Valley just going to be too big for them, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I think they have something to prove, ultimately. There's the whole conversation of should Alabama be in, should SMU be in, should another team other than those two teams be in. I think SMU is in a situation where they have everything to gain and nothing to lose, in that this is a program that, thanks to NIL, is back into the national conversation for the first time in decades, and they're ecstatic to be there. Being the runner-up in the ACC championship game, that was a close game, not their best game, so I think they have something to prove. And it's always that issue of, I think as Penn State fans, we're sitting there being like, it's going to be cold and it could be snowy and it's going to be nasty and they got to travel from Dallas to central Pennsylvania late December. It's like, yeah, I think that could play a factor, but there's also a bunch of Florida and Georgia kids on Penn State's team. So it's like, yeah, like I played middle of the road, terrible high school football in the state of Connecticut. It sucks playing in the cold, period. I don't care where you're from. I guess unless you're from Wisconsin. That's really all that's going to be like, oh, yeah, this is fine. This is surfing weather. I don't know. But I think SMU has something to prove. I think Rhett Lashley is a very, very good coach and is going to have his team ready to play. And frankly, if SMU upsets Penn State at Beaver Stadium in the first round of the college football playoff, that's a pretty big W, don't you think?
It's a huge W, and I know what the take would be coming up on Sunday and Monday. James Franklin got to go. I think James Franklin is back either way, but geez, how could anyone justify that outside of the buyout and all the money? But in terms of what makes best sense for Penn State, Franklin loses this game. I don't want to hear anyone defending him.
Yeah, I know. And it's the buyout that's really protecting him right now. $56 million as it is right now, about $48 million once January 1 rolls around. I think at the end of the day, the athletic department believes in James Franklin, and it has been 10 years of trying to take this program out of the Stone Age and into the modern era, and there's still so much more to be done. And you were just joking about NIL. Penn State is a notoriously frugal organization, I guess if you want to put it that way, athletic department, football team. So they kind of have to move ahead with the times, and that's not necessarily the football team or the athletic department. We all sit around as Penn State fans and be like, oh, why aren't we competing? Why aren't we competing? You're going to have to write a check. That's kind of the way this works. And, until we get into that conversation, you're going to continue to be frustrated by these types of situations. But, again, a lot can happen. Penn State does technically have the easiest path, at least to the semifinals this year in the playoff.
I will say, Tom Hannifan, I thought it would have been a mistake if Drew Aller would have went pro and would have elected to enter his name in the NFL draft. We know he's coming back. And I know this isn't a great quarterback draft class. I think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are the only two quarterbacks I would feel confident using a first-round pick on. But getting Drew another year, I thought was important to him. So your thoughts on Drew coming on back?
I completely agree with you. The maturation that I saw from 2023 to 2024 was impressive, but there's still elements of his game that can improve. And then the way he carries himself, it's just night and day. He looked like a deer in headlights against Michigan and Ohio State in 23. This year, he reminded me of like that fiery Tom Brady. Now, I'm not saying he's Tom Brady. I'm just saying that personality type where it was like, he's going to get on you if you're messing something up. He's in the referee's faces. He's fired up on the sideline, showing a lot more personality. So I think little things like that stand out. He improved his body a lot from 23 to 24, just making himself more capable in the running game, able to get those few yards here and there, get a first down if he has to, just being more elusive in the pocket. The thing I love about Drew Aller, and I know nobody wants to give Sean Clifford any credit, but Sean Clifford trained him extremely well in terms of game prep and reading defenses. Drew Aller rarely makes mistakes. And when they happen, they don't always kill Penn State. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there that when they screw up, it's the end of the world. Drew Aller is a very efficient quarterback now. Give him another year. I think he's the number 1 overall pick in 26.
Now, how about that? Tom Hannifan here with us. Let me get to Ohio State and Tennessee. Going into this one, are you more confident in Nico Iamaleava, who's been erratic this year, or are you more confident in Ryan Day, who's coming off another horrible loss to Michigan? And Tennessee has a similar style this year to Michigan. Really good defense, heck of a running back, and Iamaleava, even with how up and down he's been, he's better than whatever Michigan has throwing the football.
I hate this choice so much, but I think I'm going to take Ryan Day. And to me, it feels like the Michigan game was called out of ego, and this game has to be called out of logic. And you have to hand over the playbook to Chip Kelly and just be like, hey, man, go win us the game. It was the strangest thing about that Michigan game for Ohio State is that why did you stick with the run even when it wasn't working? You were trying to be a team that you aren't. You were trying to embrace this identity that you don't have. This makes all too much sense, and I get it's going to be colder weather this time of year in Columbus, but throw the dang ball. Throw it to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka. You have the weapons, and especially it's something Urban Meyer has pointed out a lot when it comes to this Ohio State team. You have a good running quarterback, and you can have that man advantage if you've got 10 blockers leading the way for Will Howard. So there's a lot of stuff about that Ohio State-Michigan game that made no sense to me. I'm hoping that Ryan Day and everybody in Columbus learn the lesson of all you have to do is win. The statement, the style points, none of that matters. I trust that more than I trust an erratic Nico Iamaleava.
Do you actually believe if Ryan Day loses this game, regardless of what they said before, that he will be back next year coaching the Buckeyes?
No. I'm still in the camp that Chip Kelly's plan B.
Really?
I don't think Chip Kelly necessarily wants to be a head coach necessarily. So I'm like, I could see it going a couple of different ways. And then you have to ask the question, like, who's out there? Who are they going to go get? It's late in the coaching cycle. So you kind of ask yourself a few questions. I've heard people out there talk about Mike Vrabel. He probably wants to get himself a job in the National Football League. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, like, you at least have Chip for a year if you want. There's something like that going on, but I don't see how it's tenable to keep Ryan Day after this many years of inconsistency and failure against Michigan. And then it's like, all right, you get a home game against the Tennessee team that you can beat. And to be clear, I'm not trying to throw shade at the Volunteers. Tennessee is capable of beating Ohio State. Nico would have to have maybe the best game of his career, and Heupel would have to decide that they're absolutely going to run the ball down Ohio State's throat. I don't know. I think Ryan Day is done if they lose this one.
And I will also say this. I will not go to Chip Kelly. But I know Urban Meyer put out that statement where he's not going to come back and he's not going to coach at Ohio State. He loved his time there. I don't know if they'll make the phone call. But if Ohio State made the phone call, I don't believe one word right now that Urban Meyer, maybe I'll call him Urban Liar, saying right now, I think he would take that job back in a second, Tom.
I mean, have we ever known Urban Meyer to be dishonest whatsoever? I mean, that would be unbelievable.
All righty, let me get you to Indiana, Notre Dame. Where's the confidence that Notre Dame gets the job done up against a very confident Curt Cignetti?
I feel pretty good about Notre Dame. My co-host on Believe in Big Ten, where we cover all things Big Ten football, is Rhett Lewis of the Big Ten and NFL Network, former Indiana Hoosier wide receiver. So earmuffs, Rhett. Running the football is going to be the key for Notre Dame. That shouldn't surprise anybody. I like what they do defensively, and I think Riley Leonard has trended in the right direction in terms of improving as a passer this year, especially. I don't expect them to do anything remarkable in that department, but it's Riley left, Riley right. They seem to have a pretty good formula there. I like what Indiana is capable of. And again, all these teams that are playing up north, Curtis Rourke throwing the football in colder weather, nastier weather, that could potentially get affected. Justice Ellison is no slouch running the football, so it could turn into a shootout. I'm not entirely sure, but I do like Notre Dame in the way they have momentum going into this game. Indiana showed some real problems against Ohio State, incredible competition. I think Notre Dame is credible.
Where do you lean on Clemson and Texas? Because I haven't made an official prediction on this one. And even though I've kind of been clowning Dabo Swinney the last 3 to 4 years, something just still scares me, and I mean this in a good way, about Dabo Swinney in this spot up against Texas.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that earlier on in the show, hearing Dabo potentially post-game. He's like, I told all you, you guys all count me out. I still think Texas has too much ability defensively, and they should give Cade Klubnik a lot of problems. And listen, I like what Clemson can do defensively, the way that they were able to slow up SMU for good portions of that ACC championship game. The way they performed most of the season was impressive. I think Texas has better personnel defensively, and it also feels like a situation where I don't think Sarkisian's like playing to make a statement or anything like that, but it's been a bit of a rocky year. I think coming out and having a strong performance in Austin is going to be important. And then also, even if Quinn Ewers falters, is this Arch Manning's big coming out party? I think that's something that's very likely.
So it's so fascinating, the Arch Manning conversation. And I know that in the first time up against Georgia, he went to him for 2 drives. It's amazing how good Texas has been. And all throughout the year, we've been like, yeah, Quinn hasn't looked good. When are they going to go to Arch? And I know you had a little bit of the injury and you saw Arch, but it was up against no one. It's funny how Texas, I don't think they'll win it all, but they can win it all. And how we still don't love their quarterback. And that's for a lot of these teams entering the playoff. There's a lot of uncertainty with these quarterbacks.
I found it so interesting, that story that was out there that allegedly some Big Ten team is offering Quinn Ewers $4 million to transfer to their team for the 2025 season. So it's like, hey, he's got a matter of weeks to make that decision. And even if that's a decision or if that's just a rumor, is that leverage to use against Texas? It also kind of signals that the kid might be a little nervous about going to the NFL this quickly and realizes there might be a short run. So I think Arch Manning has been this cattle prod, no pun intended, that Steve Sarkisian has used as the season has gone on, and that you even saw in the Texas A&M game where Arch Manning went in, and then all of a sudden, boy, Quinn Ewers just looked like he had a lot more spring in his step, didn't he? So I think that competition's been really positive. I think Arch Manning could use another offseason to just kind of settle into the position, and I think he'll do just fine. But I think Clemson is not the same monster as Georgia was. Like, that Georgia defense was unreal that night in Austin, Texas. But I think I like Texas overall personnel-wise against Clemson.
I know Carson Beck has not had a good season. Now it's Gunnar Stockton's time at Georgia. But with how much uncertainty we've been talking about with the quarterbacks, usually ask me, Oregon or the field, right? The number 1 team in the nation for a 12-team playoff. 99.9% of the time, I think I would take the field. This year, I'm taking Oregon. I know they got off to a little bit of a slow start. They still won those games up against Idaho and Boise State. But they have Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is Mr. Consistent, and it's not like they have great individual stars, but they just have a phenomenal team, and they're so well-rounded. I don't see when you ask me Oregon or the field how you end up taking the field this year.
Yeah, it's tough, and I would argue Tez Johnson is special. Seeing what he did in the Big Ten championship game up close up against Penn State, I was extremely impressed. He reminded me of Deshaun Jackson once upon a time at Cal. I think he can develop to be even better than what he is now. Here's the thing. I think Oregon is the most complete team in college football. But when you look at Georgia, Georgia's been at their best when it's not necessarily a quarterback that is the proverbial 5-tool player. And I wouldn't even put Carson Beck in that category.
Yeah.
I think people hoped Carson Beck could be that. You just need a guy who's going to throw the ball maybe 15 times, not make a lot of mistakes. If he can get the ball 20 to 30 yards downfield, it's really all you're asking. You want to run the football, get the ball to your tight ends off a play action from under center, and then you're going to play really hard-nosed defense. And I think that's kind of what they got back to with Stockton. It's what they got away from after the Stetson Bennett era, and they thought all of a sudden with Carson Beck they could just do bombs away. And Carson Beck is disappointed this year in that his processing, his decision-making, holding onto the football has been a bit of a problem. So it's still remains to be seen whether or not Stockton is going to take them to new heights or anything like that. There's not enough data on him at this point, but it does feel like it's more traditional Georgia football with this setup. So I like Georgia and Oregon. I know it's chalk to go that way, but I like them in the national championship.
Before I let you run, Tom Hannifan, you know me, I'm not the biggest James Franklin fan in the world.
No.
But I will give him credit. His comments the other day on Bo Perbula were spot on. The only thing is, and I keep on thinking about this, what can you actually do with the transfer portal? Because college football, right, there's still an academic aspect to it because it's picking and choosing pretty much. It's a professional sport, but you still got to deal with the academic standards. And Penn State, right, most campuses, I'm just using Penn State because we're talking Franklin, their semester opens up before the national championship game is even over. So in theory, yeah, it'd be great if the transfer portal didn't open up until after the national championship game, but you still got the school aspect. So is there any answer here what college football can do when it comes to solving this issue?
Money talks, and I think you could see some changes in academic calendars. That wouldn't shock me for some of these major programs because that's really the only thing in the way at this point. I mean, if this were to come, this transfer portal window were to come after the national championship is completed, who's to say that a student couldn't skip, for instance, the spring semester and then be in class thoroughly or even more so during summer sessions? Now, there's all sorts of combinations. All I'm saying is money talks, money finds a way. I think this is probably a temporary problem that they're going to figure out somewhere down the road. And to your point about Bo Perbula, I feel bad for him, and it is a team rule from what I understand from James Franklin. You're either in the portal or you're on the team. And I've heard some people say, well, that's a bad rule. Look at it this way. If you're Bo Perbula and say you were practicing this week and then you're also allegedly trying to field offers from Missouri, I saw Indiana, UCF, and Iowa, how in the world are you supposed to focus and be an asset to your team if you're trying to focus on your future? I am all for Bo Perbula going and finding a starting job, especially later in this transfer portal cycle. I mean, that's the hard truth of this for quarterbacks. It's musical chairs. You've got to wind up somewhere important. The thing that kills me, man, is that we might see Drew Aller versus Bo Perbula, Penn State versus Iowa next year at Kinnick, and at Kinnick is scary as hell. And like my fan brain does not want to see that, but like my sports fan brain is like, yeah, give me the drama, give me all of that gossip going into that game. Yes.
And if I was SMU, in what you were saying, you're either in the portal or not, I'd be on the phone with Perbula, make him an offer and see if you get him in there, get some information. What else you could get?
Little gamesmanship, little pony excess, never killed any. Well, it almost killed them, but it's fun with it. Yeah.
All righty. I appreciate the time as always, Tom Hannifan. Thanks so much for doing this. Always enjoy the time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
There you go. Tom Hannifan joining us. He has 9 million jobs right now with the wrestling and also Sirius XM. And believe as well, he does a really kick-ass job and always enjoy when we get him on. We'll come on back with our Ask the Pros question of the day, and we'll end the show on that whole James Franklin rant, which I thought was a good rant by James Franklin. See, I could compliment James Franklin. How about that? And we'll talk more about the Bo Perbula and what college football could do moving forward. Update time first. Here is El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, been a week of change in the NFL. 3 starting quarterbacks changing. Browns going Dorian Thompson-Robinson with Jameis Winston to the bench. Mason Rudolph taking over for Will Levis in Tennessee. And the Falcons, of course, making the biggest switch of all as Kirk Cousins sits for the rookie Michael Penix.
Michael's been the number 2, one snap away all year. And he's been in the preparation in the lab, ready to go. He's been grinding away, learning from Kurt, being around his coaches, being ready to go, knowing that every play could be the last snap for anybody. So, he's been doing all the normal preparation that you have to do in order to start a game. So he's ready to go. As far as that's a mental standpoint, now he's got to go out there and do it physically within the practice format and how we want to do it.
Head coach Raheem Morris, as Penix gets the nod against the Giants, he's going to go with Drew Lock as Tommy DeVito is set to be the backup if he can clear concussion protocol. Ivy League schools headed to the FCS College Football Playoff for the first time, allowed to compete for a national championship in football. League set to get an automatic bid into the playoff. Wake Forest going Jake Deckard, who's their next head coach, spent the last 3 years at Washington State, went 23-20. Caden Salter appears to have the inside track to replace Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, reportedly set to transfer, and a couple of bowl games, including the Boca Raton Bowl with James Madison in Western Kentucky, just getting started. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie.
And this is Nick.
From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. It is time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ethan in Harrisburg says, Zach, what do you make of the James Franklin comments about Bo Perbula in the transfer portal? You could submit a question by tweeting at INF Sports or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I actually tweeted about this a month ago. And I said, in advance of the transfer portal, I wish the transfer portal wouldn't open up until after the national championship game. And then I realized, because of the academic calendar, you can't do that because the academic calendar starts before the national championship game with the majority of the schools. So let's hear James Franklin's initial comments on the Bo Perbula situation.
We got problems in college football. I can give you my word, Bo Perbula did not want to leave our program, and he did not want to leave our program until the end of the season. But the way the portal is and the timing of it and the way our team is playing, he felt like he was put in a no-win situation, and I agree with him. I don't think it's in the best interest of the student athlete. I don't think it's in the best interest of college football, but I think that's our challenge right now, right? Who is really running college football and making the best decisions for the student athletes and for our sport as a whole? And I know there's been a lot of discussions about, maybe a commissioner of college football, but I think it's pretty obvious we need that. We need somebody running college football. We need somebody that is not biased based on a conference and that is out of the financial impacts of it as well. So I'm concerned for college football right now in general, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of people are.
Joe Klatt had this today. The easiest way to fix this December transfer portal madness is finishing the college football season prior to the start of the spring semester. We should be crowning a champion near January 1st, and then we could have an 8 to 10 day window after that. Keep in mind, teams play 3 or 4 non-conference games and they have 2 weeks off. There is more time available than you think. Are they going to start the season earlier? I don't see them starting the season, early August. I don't think that's going to be the case. And also, what happens when you expand the playoff inevitably? I think that this is something where you want it to get fixed. I don't think there's a great solution from anything that I've heard. All righty, we got to get to a Take 5 Wednesday real quickly. Let's do it.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, I give you my top 5 teams in the NFL right now. In at number 5. After their latest victory, it wasn't the prettiest game in the world, but they ended up getting the win, and that's all that matters this time of the year. We are rocking and rolling with the Minnesota Vikings. Cold like Minnesota getting the 30-12 dub up against the Chicago Bears. I still have a few concerns about Sam Darnold as you continue to make a deep run into the postseason. I think they could win 2 playoff games. That's probably about it. But Minnesota only has 2 losses. They're a heck of a team. The Lions, they got back into the game. They were never going to win the game up against the Buffalo Bills. Their defense is just getting absolutely depleted with injuries, and it's been decimated with injuries. It's a shame to see. And then on offense, you lose David Montgomery, but that team is still a heck of a team. Dan Campbell basically had that onside kick in the game, which a lot of people crushed him for, and I get it. It was because he had just no confidence in his defense, but still with St. Brown and Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jared Goff, that's going to be one tough team to play. In at number 3, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes looks like he's going to play this weekend, I would think. He was a full he did participate in practice. They beat the Browns, but it's another sloppy game. But this is what the Chiefs do. They play good defense. The offense doesn't look as great as it once was, but it still continues to be good enough where they're sitting here this late into the season as we enter Week 16, and they only have one loss on the resume, sitting in there at 13-1. So Kansas City is in at number 3. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Do I go Buffalo 2, Eagles 1? Or do I go Eagles 2, Buffalo 1? I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills in at number 2. Even though they just did a heck of a job up against the Detroit Lions, I'm seeing something the last few weeks that I'm not liking from the Buffalo Bills. And I think the Bills get to the Super Bowl because of their quarterback, Josh Allen. He's at an MVP level. That defense the last 2 weeks, yikes. They got destroyed up against the Rams, and even the Lions got back into the game. So the defense is the difference to me. That's why the Philadelphia Eagles go in at number 1. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, all good. Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. Offensive line, still awesome in Philly, even after losing Jason Kelsey. But that defense, they're starting to really play. And that defense is what leads the Eagles into the top spot right now in the NFL. So Philly 1, Buffalo 2, Kansas City in at number 3. The Lions 4, and a little cold like Minnesota. The Minnesota Vikings in at number 5. Now let's go to Stu with Little Mambo number 5. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
All right, talked about the Eagles. What about the team that they beat on Sunday, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers?
As I said it to Russ after the game, there's a reason why people call them good, not great. We saw that on this past Sunday, and their offense without George Pickens, it has problems. I just do not trust the offense enough.
What about the Packers' 10-4 statement win against the Seahawks Sunday night?
A statement win indeed. But I wouldn't say that it was a big game victory because Seattle's not a big game team. They play Minnesota 2 weeks from now. That's a really big statement to be made. There are other statement games this year. They lost to the Detroit Lions. Right? You beat the Texans. It was fine. They lost to Philadelphia. They've lost to Minnesota. I just got to see them have a statement victory, and they can up against the Minnesota Vikings. Like a good win up against the Seahawks. But I wouldn't say that it was this wonderful victory that we have to sit here and say now they're a top 5 team in the NFL.
What about the team with the 3rd most points scored in the league this year, and that's the Baltimore Ravens?
I don't trust their defense. And they sit there at 9-5. We know they're a good team. But so Lamar Jackson, those 5 touchdowns up against the Giants, they need to put you in the top 5? I think not. That defense, that's the concerning part to me. And I think it's going to separate them from being an elite team this year, prevent them from being an elite team.
All right, last but not least, the Texans now 9-5 with 2 straight wins.
I like Danielle Hunter. I like Will Anderson. But the offense with some of the injuries that they suffered this year, they just don't look like a team that's ready to take that next step. I think they can repeat what they did last year, win a wild card game, then they'll bow out in the divisional round. But they just don't look like they're ready to take that next step. Now, they have moments in the next 2 weeks to prove it up against Kansas City on Saturday. And then you do play the Baltimore Ravens. So you got 2 games in a short span, one on December 21st, the other on December 25th. You got some opportunities to kind of change the narrative on the Texans, but I think they're just good, not great. So once again, my top 5 teams in the NFL for this week: Vikings 5, Lions 4, Chiefs 3, Bills 2, Eagles 1. Stu Pock, thank you. Samter, thank you as well. Big thanks to Marco, each and every one of you for tuning in addition to my guests, Chris Petersen, Ryan Hot Take Hickey, and Tom Hannifan. Enjoy your Wednesday evening. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.